Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Freeman Files here on the J-Free 906 podcast channel. Tonight we have Seth and Tom, as always, and our special guest, Mr. Jeremy Church. I almost said Burton there for a minute. I was thinking about Burton Cosgrove. Jeremy Church, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming on. I tell you, honestly, for the last, all 5 previous episodes that we've talked about so far, I keep saying on there or thinking to myself, because we're talking Money Pit, we're talking Solution Channel, we're talking the treasure falling down in the, and I'm like, I wonder what Jeremy thinks about all this. I gotta ask him. And I thought, well, heck, we'll just get him on the show and I'll ask him on the air. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So thank you, folks, for being here with us tonight. I appreciate it very much. And as always, I say, if you would consider, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell so that you know when we have new content coming out, if not already scheduled on our regular Wednesday night gigs. Tomorrow night, I am also going to be doing a little bit of, we're going to be jumping to the UFO UAP side. We're going to be talking with Dustin Eccleston from, he is the MUFON director for Utah. So we're going to be talking UFOs and UAPs with him tomorrow night. So please check that out. That's tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, as always. And as we get started tonight, I did want to talk just for a moment or so about somebody who became very special. And as some of you already know, the word has been put out that Jim McQuiston passed away early Sunday morning. And Jim, I tell you what, he is going to be missed. He's already being missed. I miss him a lot. Christine and I had the opportunity to go up and meet with him and Doc, as you see in the picture here. We went up there and met with them and had lunch. I've been talking with McHugh, as I call him, for a couple of years, and he's been on the podcast several times. A fantastic, nice person, great author, and researcher, and just a all around very intelligent person. And wow, I know it's just
it's a shock to everybody to hear this.
Yeah, truly. So condolences for his wife and also for Doc, because they are very good friends, and all the stuff that he's done. But man, just took me by surprise when we found out on Sunday morning. Yeah, so check him out. They have a lot of, and that's staying up. Doc said he's going to do his best to continue with Oak Island Plus. That is on YouTube, Oak Island Plus. They also have a Facebook group page, Oak Island Plus, and he's going to do his best to keep things rolling as best he can. But yes, a great loss for everybody on that. So, but anyway, hope, if you didn't know him, or if you were familiar with him, he has, like I said, he had 14 books, just came out with his last book.
Yeah. His books are all extremely well written. I'm thankful for all the help he's given me over the years. Jim was always available to answer a question or help me with my own research or give me some historical data. And I'm going to miss his Fun Friday post too.
Yeah.
He did some terrific Fun Friday posts. So, I mean, super guy. I mean, he's going to be missed. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, definitely. So I did want to talk about him for just a moment tonight because, we're going to miss him. Great guy, great friend to me and to our channel and everything that we do here. So also, I'm going to talk about Oak Island Con just for a moment. And we are sold out. We sold out all the tickets for 2026 in June. Yes, I know. It's great. It is sold out in a week, or less than just a little bit less than a week. But I did want to say that we are doing a waiting list, because there will be some cancellations, we're sure. So if you want on the wait list, just give us either email me. Let's see, I think I've got the right here. You can use these email addresses, ahotours.com, jfree906@gmail.com, or Lorraine LeBlanc 2015 at gmail.com. Just use one of those if you want to get on the wait list. Actually, Lorraine is probably the best one to reach out to on that, but any of us, and we'll make sure that you are added to the wait list. It will be first come, first serve.
Yeah, Tony actually did a post this afternoon about various contacts and how to get a hold of people and stuff. So
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah. Yep. I also wanted to make mention of this here real quick as well before we get started tonight. Oftentimes I get information from you folks in the chat and viewers of the show, little information, tidbits about things that kind of relate to Oak Island. And this one came to me from Rob Doak. I'll bring it up on the screen here. Rob sent me a link to it's kind of like an article, and it talks about the makeup of uh, rock walls and rock foundations and things of that nature. It was really an interesting read, and it talks about, like, remember the lot or the wall that's on lot 26 that they just talked about last week, where you have the larger boulders on the outside and the rubble in the middle. They also do foundations like this and things like that. He sent me that link to this article, and I have linked it below, or had it in the description below. If you want to check it out, if you're into that kind of thing, if you want to read that, there's a link below. Click on it. It takes you right to the site where you can check it out. And again, I want to just thank Rob for sharing that. So appreciate that very much. All right. So shall we get started? The Curse of Oak Island. It is episode number 6 of season 13. The heat is on. I know last night in Discord, all of us were sitting in there and we were trying to figure out, or I was asking the question to everybody. So what do you think the heat is on is going to be about? What is it? I was not expecting what it turned out to be.
I had 6 different guesses and they're all wrong.
Yeah. So there's the shot. I always love to show those shots of Oak Island from the sky. Really cool. We're going to start off in the war room because that's where this was all being discussed. Marty had put out to Emma, Jillian, and to Steve to put together I guess they call it a heat map.
Heat map, yeah.
A heat map. Once they described what it was, I was like, oh, okay, I get a heat map. But the heat map is a map of where all the hits are, where the things are that they're finding, all the different, in this case, it would be the artifacts that they're finding throughout the island. And on here, you see that they showed this piece of paper, the legend for it. Pink would be old, 1700s or earlier. Yellow is early mid 1700s to early 1800s. And then green being pre-modern, early to mid 1800s, and then blue being modern and current. And I love this. The fact that they put this thing together to show us where these artifacts that they're finding, because they catalog everything. And I thought it was really interesting. You notice a lot for Tom. You guys, what do you think? Is that from the spoils pile that was over there? Is that why they're showing?
That's where they took all the spoils from lot 5, or when they scraped the surface. That's where they took everything over there to dump it. So I guess that's probably what they're giving credit for.
I guess. I was wondering if that was because of their spoils.
Now, if you do recall, now that I think of it, when they were over doing metal detecting on 4, they did dig down through beyond what would have been the stuff that they dumped. Remember, they had to dig down through the roots.
That's right. I do remember that. Yep.
So I would say they did find, at least some stuff over there.
Yeah. But so the really, to me, the really important stuff would be the pink colored items, and the yellow. I think yellow and the pink.
Yep.
And you see there's a lot of them. And of course the Roman coins and all that stuff fell into that category as well. Even though we constantly are, wondering where did those Roman coins come from and why, and they were all basically found up in the center of the island on lot 5. And who was walking around or happened to be hanging around up there that had a pouch with Roman coins in them, dropping them, losing them, or maybe considered at the time that they weren't as worthy as gold and silver or whatever. But yeah, interesting that they were finding those. And then they talked about all the ones that were here in the money pit, and finding a lot of searcher stuff, the blues and the greens, the pinks and the yellows in there too. TB1, Tom Burns 1, and also TOT 1, getting some good hits. as far as that goes. But overall, lot 15. And this is kind of what got them going about thinking about let's head over to lot 15 and see what's happening over there, because they were there before. They went through this. We know that the pine tar kiln, the so-called pine tar kiln,
Say that 10 times.
I know, right? And that's this area over here. But they also found a lot of ox shoes in that area as well. So it's quite a few interesting things there. But up in this area here, which they kind of hit on it and then they backed away from it. Yes. Oh, yeah, Lisa, that's for sure. I remember that when we were on Tony's tour, there were dozens of flags all over the hillside beyond Nolan's property. So I assume that's, yes, lot 15-ish, 15, 16, 14, 15, 16, probably right all in this area right here. And also, wasn't that, and anybody, and even Jeremy, if you remember, there was that spot where Dave or Dan Blankenship had talked about what he thought was a privy area or something like that. It was a privy up there or whatever in that area, and he thought that's where he wanted to drill over there. And they went over and they drilled once, and they didn't really find too much, but I think that was in that.
You know, I was just going to add that we had some interest in that area when we were shooting seismic, and it was actually the next area that we were going to cover, but it never came to fruition, unfortunately. But I remember back in 2018, 2019, there was some real interest in those areas, but at the time there's other things that kind of took priority. So. Yeah,
that's, and that's one of the things. Yeah, thank you, Michelle Tomeyer. She said latrine. Yes, that's the word I was reaching for. I didn't want to say graphic, whatever. Anyway,
we call them outhouses down here, Jeff.
Yeah, outhouses. Yeah, the latrine. Yeah, he thought there was like a latrine over there. But that's one of the things, Jeremy, that we often, kind of talk about is the fact that there's an area of interest, and we think, oh, well, they need to spend more time over there. Why are they not looking there? But really, you think about it, with the season they have to search, they've got to prioritize what they want. I mean, to me, it seems like, oh, well, you should be able to cover the whole island every summer. Yeah, not so much, right?
It's hard to move through those forests, especially on the east side of the island there. It's hard working in there for sure.
Yep. And the mosquitoes and everything else.
Was lot 15 where they lifted up the giant boulder to see what was underneath it, and they found what was it, like animal fur or something?
No, I believe.
Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah, I do know what you're talking about. They picked up they found that.
Yeah, they found hair or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on a piece of stone, like, or.
Zane said no, that was cone E.
Yes,
okay.
That was cone E. So that would have been the bottom of Nolan's cross.
Okay, thanks, Zane.
Yep. Yeah, and you see all the things too that they found over in. So yeah, this would be 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. I can't read these very well. I think they're trying to keep us
yeah.
being able to read them or something.
That's the northern part of the swamp there, isn't it?
Yeah, this is all part of the swamp up here in the top, but yeah. So, and there's the whole map, looking at the entire island. And, and that's the other part about it. Look at lot 1. Isn't that crazy? Lot 1 having so much going on over there. That's kind of, yeah, right here. That kind of blew me away.
It kind of makes sense. It's closest to the mainland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to come onto the island and get your closest spot to land, that's it.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of interesting stuff here. And then also down here in lot 32 right down here in the bottom. Pretty interesting. So I thought this was cool. It was kind of neat to see this as a grouping of all the different things that they found over the years on there. So I thought that was really cool. So that led them, of course, over to lot 15 to get another, do some more work over there. And as Michelle was saying, as somebody said there, was talking about all the flags. Lisa Bates talking about the flags that were over there. There were a lot of flags in that area. And this is also the lot where they found the charcoal and that Spanish coin, and also that stone that was like perfectly round. I mean, to find a stone, I mean, you pick up a stone off the ground, that was out of a blunderbuss or something like that, or a small cannonball or something. But I mean, it is perfectly round. That's unusual to find one that's.
You can find stones like that on heavily washed shores. I've seen a few like on Grand Manan Island that are round, but I'm pretty sure none of them came from the Azores.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pre-1700s, yeah, or 17th century. Yep. Yeah, the Azores, yeah, and that's something. And that's so cool that they can be able to detect that or find that out. Yeah, they talked about going over here and plowing it, and he did some plowing on it to kind of turn up the soil a little bit so that they could, any artifacts that might be deep, they could bring them up a little bit, maybe make them easier to detect.
Well, that's how we discussed how those Roman coins get moved around too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's been up there farming, tilling, moving stuff. And in your overhead shot, when you first opened up the overhead shot, when you look down, you can see that area. They tilled that whole thing.
Yeah. I've got some more pictures of that coming up. Yep. Have taken all these trees out. Like when you're on Tony's tour and you're right over here in the water, you can look up here on the hill, and it is up on a hill. I think I've got that picture that you sent me, Tom, of that as well. So this is how it started. Over there, this is that area, that whole area that's been cleared out. Lot 15, lot 16, right in this area here. That's when they got started. Oh, here it is here. 52 feet elevation there.
15 and 16 are the two highest spots on the island. At least that's what I was told.
Yep.
So if you're gonna, and we'll talk about this later, but if you're looking for an elevated spot to put a marker, to hide something, to draw a map, to survey an island from, where would you go?
The highest point.
You're going to go to the highest spot on the island. Find the tallest tree. I mean, the age-old story, right? Get as high as you can.
Yep.
So, and look how visible it would be from the open ocean.
Yeah, exactly. And that's looking kind of northeasterly there. I think that's the Oak Island Resort right there on the top of the screen there. So you're looking on that side
but coming at it from any direction, you're at the top of the hill. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. Lookout post. Yeah, exactly, Bill. That's definitely where.
Yep, for sure.
Then Gary's up there. He's doing some metal detecting right after it got plowed up a little bit, and I noticed this right here. You noticed it too. I'm always looking in the background. What's in the background? And so we were looking at this. It's like, okay, what was that? I had to go back and see if I could capture. It looks like Fred or Tom being a little. That's Nolan's property over there. I believe they did find this piece of coal, which was cool. Gary reached down and picked it up off the ground, and there's again that shot from the Azores that they found. So Gary found that piece of coal, and they were scratching on a rock here, and it definitely came off on there. So it apparently is coal.
It's oily, greasy. It's coal.
Yep. And so that made its way over to the lab, where I'm certain, to get looked at closer. And he found a rosehead nail or spike, a little spike there as well. And that's kind of I thought, well, if there was, like you had just said, Tom, talking about this being the high point of the island, and if there was any kind of lookout post or anything like up there, there would be a structure up there of some sort, maybe. I don't know, maybe not a tall one, but maybe a structure of some sort. So they would be building.
Platform, could be goodness knows what, right?
Yeah.
Could be the privy you've been looking for.
Yeah, could be the privy.
Yeah. You wanna use the restroom with the view.
Yeah. Yeah, find the windiest spot on the
island. Very comfortable.
So yep, that was neat. This was a cool find. I thought this was a really neat find. And he called it a pintle. Is that a pintle?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Where you would drive it into, when I saw it initially, I was thinking of something to hang a fence on, a gate or something like that. Or you drive it. What's that?
Or it could have been the door to the privy.
Could have been the door to the privy. Yeah.
That's where you hang your lantern on it while you use it.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, you drive in this side here into the wood, and then you hook whatever you're going to, maybe it's straight up, and you could hook whatever you want onto the other end there. We'll see when they get that. Obviously, you heard Gary talking about how it was a great candidate for the lab. So
absolutely.
Get an age on that thing. figure out. I'm going to say mid 1600s. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sure.
A pintle.
I'm with you.
Yep. So there they are looking at it, and there's where he's talking about it being a pintle. He gets, going. Oh, this was another shot where I was looking at that rock. I forgot I already had it. There it is there. It's a rock standing on a rock. I don't think that's part of the mystery. I think they would have brought it up. Did you ever see that, Jeremy? I know you were in that area too, weren't you?
I don't recall ever seeing that. It could be a little newer.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is a little newer. But it was funny because Tom and I both saw it back there, and we both had to make save a picture of it. Okay, this is looking at it after it had been cleared up a lot. Kat says they use pintles for swinging swivels things like rudders, and the pin. The pin fits into the.
Yep, makes sense.
Door hinge. Yep. But you see this area, it's pretty well, scraped right down and flattened out. So, they got a lot of interest to spend the time that they did to clean this all up. They must have high hopes for this area. Yeah, that could be the case, Matt. Yeah, that could be the case. Just mess with Jeff, so he'll talk about it. He'll spend 5 minutes talking about it. Yeah. Yeah. Prometheus loves to do that too. Here's another look at it here. But again, like I said, they really put a lot of time and effort into this space, more so than like the money pit almost area. Katya comes out. She's out there with Peter, and they're doing a little bit more metal detecting in this area. I'll just move on. Never mind. Anyway, so she finds a button, which was pretty cool. Definitely a button. There's a little hoop on the back. Ready for cabbage. Yeah, Ernest, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
Ready for cabbage farming. But yeah, cool button. And I didn't see, it's hard. You can't really see any kind of a design on it. I just spent a standard brass button. But if they can find something on it, it might be cool to be able to identify it, get a time period on it of some sort.
What did Peter say? He quoted people who had buttons had pockets, and people who had pockets dropped coins or something.
Yeah. I think he got that from Gary.
Yeah, he's quoting Gary.
Something Gary would say for sure. I took this shot here because I noticed, again, looking at those flags, and if you're on one of Tony's tours, you see flags all over the island. And I had to wonder, why are those previous times that Gary was out metal detecting when he wasn't, I guess they are, because he's made a comment about a flag. Oh, there's a flag over there that must have found something over there. Why would they just stick these flags in the ground with no hole? Because I know that they oftentimes will take, when they find something, they'll put it in the bag, seal it, lay it in there, and then put the flag in it to mark it. And it's like, well, I don't know. Why all these flags? Why didn't they dig them up? Why don't you just dig them? Why flag them?
Well, it could be they're waiting to bring the camera crew back too, because you don't know what's coming out of the ground.
Maybe.
Do they need Laird to, I guess, prep for the archaeological aspect, perhaps?
Possibly so. Yeah. When they was that the question you had up there, Linda? Was that from when they finished the area? Don't they flag every find for documentation purposes? Yes, they do. I think maybe it might. Well, these ones here don't look like they're dug up. That's what made me question that. And like I said,
Right.
When you're on one of Tony's tours and you're going around the island, you see them all over the place. There's a lot of flags, and it's like, wow, what's going on with all these flags?
Yeah, some of the flags we saw before were numbered, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
they were.
Number the bag with the artifact in it, number the flag, and then Steve can come back and chart the artifact of the flag later.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're right, Linda. That's exactly what I was what I wanted to say, but I won't say it. So anyway, yeah, flags all over the place. Then they find this, and this was a really cool find. which turns out to be that, of course, that compass that we saw when Matty Blake did his 1 hour special, preseason special, just before the premiere back. And so that was really cool find. You can kind of get a look at it there. If you look at it closely, you can see the two legs of it here. But I went back and I grabbed the pictures because they did go through the analysis of it in the lab. There is it sitting in there in the lab, and then this was the scan of it.
So cool.
Yeah, you can definitely see where the hinge point here on the top, and then the two legs of it down below. On lot 15, it was found. So that's a cool find. I really like that.
And you got to like the way Peter was thinking.
Yeah, I know.
Spot on the island where you're going to draw your maps and your charts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, did they give an age on this at all? I don't remember.
I don't recall.
I mean, we will get the episode where they're talking about this, and it may be as soon as next week. But I couldn't remember. Does anybody in the chat remember if they gave us a date on this thing, on Matty's special, drilling down special? I just don't. I don't recall if we had that or not. But a great find, and to think that yes, they used them at sea, but they also used them on land as well for mapping purposes.
You were a surveyor,
like yeah. Absolutely. So,
or maybe one of the Restall kids dropped it. Who knows?
Yeah. We often laugh sometimes when we because Tom and I we love to speculate about different things on the island. What could that be for, or what but this time I think when Peter said something about maybe it was being used when it was when they were putting Nolan's cross down. That's not that big of a stretch, really.
No,
I mean,
if you're drawing maps or drawing charts,
yeah, exactly.
Or if you're back there and you're not drawing the map or the chart, but you're trying to figure out where something is.
Yeah.
Go to the top of the hill, find the big pile of rocks, and here's your directions from there.
Exactly. Yeah. So cool find for sure. And I'd love to, like I said, I'd love to find out how old it is. Pre-AutoCAD days. Yeah. Yep. Some cartographer is upset that he lost his favorite divider used for marking, measuring, and transferring distances accurately. Yep. Yeah, absolutely, Zane. I got to get you two together, Jeremy, you and Zig. We just made that comment. He uses your images that you shared with us quite often when we're looking at. He's an AutoCAD guy. He's like, does these diagrams and stuff that blow my mind. And we were looking at the money pit and stuff around the money pit, and I said, man, we got to get you two together because he just loves to create those things. And I was wanting to get that detail on how deep was the solution channel and the other, bodies of water that are under there. And so I said, man, we got to get you two together at some point because he's really good with that stuff. So that was interesting that they were really working lot 15 and I think lot 16 up in that area as well. Yes, unless the cross is much older than the tool, right? Yeah, and the cross was already dated a couple of different. 1200?
The cross could easily be older than the tool. If you're coming back trying to find the cross, you need the tool to find it. Because it's down in the trees. You're not going to see it from the ocean.
That's exactly right.
You're going to need to know where to go look.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know how to. I mean, I know you can use those like on a legend of so this much is a mile or a half a mile or whatever, and then you can use that and get it set and then use that on the map. But other than that, I really don't know how to, other than making circles and so I don't know how to use
right, yeah.
Protractors and all that kind of stuff. Geometry. Oh boy. All right. So what do you guys think? Lot 15, is that going to be the new I know lot 8's coming up and I can't wait to get on lot 8, but what do you think about lot 15?
There's stuff up there to find.
Yeah. Find it. And it seems like an unprecedented amount of clearing that they've done on that lot. So there's got to be more than just a couple pings on the heat. I don't know. I'm suspicious, like when Jeremy said, y'all were that was of interest right away. I want to ask, well, why was that of interest? But I don't know if you can answer that. But yeah, there's something going on, and I'm excited to see, because and the compass totally plays into the Tom was thinking, and I like the idea that it's this compass wasn't necessarily the people who did the cross, but people coming back to the island trying to find the sites like the cross.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, that cross, Nolan's cross, you know, that's there's been a lot of people that said, oh, Fred Nolan did that. He moved those around there, those stones, and put them in those places and all of that. I just don't buy it. I really don't. You know, especially when they picked up like Cone E, and they picked it up and found that conglomerate down there with that hair on it and stuff. And I just don't think so. And then we're going to get to this lot 8 find, this other stone, this big boulder that they found. That's going to be interesting as well. And does that tie in? I mean, it's not a cone style shaped rock like the rest of them are, but it is more like the northern stone from the top of, and I guess it'd be cone A. At the top of the cross, that one's standing up. It's not really a cone shape. It's more of a pillar. I'm going to say stone standing up there. I've actually seen that one up there. So that's really interesting. The other ones are more like, you see the one on the beach that's down there on Nolan's beach. That one's round. It's like a cone. I mean, that looks like an upside down top, you know, point sticking up. It's really hard to miss. That would mean, to me, would be more like a marker you would see when you're coming in with your boat, and you'd see that stone there. I'd be checking it to be a marker of some sort, or a keystone to let you know where, you know, how to find things. But again, going back to Nolan's cross, I still, you know, I've said it before, but I still think that is a monumental task that a group of people took on for a big purpose. It wasn't just.
Didn't they say one time that the stones in Nolan's cross were not the same type of rocks?
I don't recall.
And that they were, you know, I don't know, say one's granite and one's, I don't know, something else. But I think the stones were actually different. So they're thinking they were purposely moved.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. Granite? Yeah, Ernest says granite. I don't know. Possibly. I'm not sure what they're I'm not sure what they're made of, kind of stone they are.
I think they are granite. I think,
okay,
from what I recall, but I do vaguely remember something, Tom, about that, it being a non-native or local stone of some sort, but I can't.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any granite on the island.
I don't think so.
No.
Not that I've heard, anyway.
Hang on.
But again, it's a monumental task to try to move those back in the day. I mean, look how much trouble they have just trying to pick one up now. Can you imagine trying to move those things into place back in the day? And that one they found down just up from the southeast corner of the swamp by the stone road, the one that they found just up a little ways, still on that eastern side of the swamp, but going north a little ways, they found that water there. And it looked like it had some stones that were built up to get it to its spot. They still haven't come up with anything particular about its placement, but it looked like, because there was stones laid out there, like there was a little pathway leading to it that might have been used to put it there. But again, I wonder why, you know, it's there. And it's another one of those giant boulders. But anyway, hopefully we'll find out at some point. All right. The bottom cross stone is granite. Oh, okay, Kat. Thank you. Cool. All right. Let's see. Let's jump over to the research center. This is where they're starting to talk about the swamp. And Jeremy, he knows a lot about. Jeremy, does that swamp? It does.
To be honest, no. It was fairly pleasant actually around it for the most part.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because they always talk about the smelly swamp. I've smelled some swamps in northern Michigan up into UP that were pretty rank when you dig in the muck. But
I think there's enough flow and movement right to it. It's not very stagnant, and which supports that it is potentially still connected to the sea, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they took a look at first when they brought up in the research center, they were looking at Steve's maps and stuff, and here you see this one. This is where they were looking at where they were working in the previous 5 episodes. They were working up a little bit further north, and this was that stone pile that they found. I didn't realize that they got this here that they call the trench. I didn't realize that that it was a trench, obviously. But it does look like it's some sort of they call it a stone pile. But one thing I heard Rick say that there was nothing north of it. No, the stones did not continue. So to say that they're all naturally laying there, they would have been kind of stop right there at that area where the trench is marked out. And that's what Rick had clearly said that about them not being north of there. So they decided to start looking south. But also cannon part. Remember that I wasn't sure where those cannon parts were found. I didn't realize that they were in the swamp area over on the west side of the swamp. That's the ones that I think Gary found. Those are, he metal detected those out of there, right? Those pieces of cannon parts.
Man, beats me. Looking at the map, I'm like, where am I on this in the swamp?
Yeah. This would be the east side. This is the road coming in.
Okay.
Road,
thank you.
Coming around and curving, then down here it turns and goes across the swamp down here. So yeah, you're basically swamped from about here, somewhere in this area up would be your swamp, and then the trees are over here on this just left of it.
So does what Ned say make sense? It being maybe a defensive battlement, especially with that trench right there. You get yourself on the other side of that wall.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. So, or if you were going to haul a boat up in there and you needed it to be a little bit deeper to keep the boat in there without running the ground.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Yep. This over here on the right-hand side, way over here, is the stone platform that they found.
Okay.
It's just north of Nolan's Peninsula. It sticks out there that he made. So it's not that far away across this portion. There's
the cannon part plays into the defensive battlement, maybe. Maybe they had a cannon there at one point. Sorry, what were you saying, Jeff?
Oh, nothing. I was just looking at some of the little interesting things that are on here. Cobble appears to be natural. From Dr. Spooner said that.
Oh, okay.
Little cobble pile right there that he didn't think was that significant.
The other thing that's interesting too is you see all the different permit numbers. Excuse me, and the size of the area is marked out that each permit covers, and I think that's because they're only allowed to permit so many feet per year.
I think you might be right. I'm not sure about that. Jeremy might have some more information about that, but I don't know, because I was wondering about that myself.
Yeah, no, there's I'm not super familiar with the ins and outs of all the permitting. It was a little actually different when we were doing the seismic. A lot of the permitting procedure changed after that, but anyways.
Yeah, if they're going to dig, I think they have so many feet per year they're allowed to play with. They get a budget.
Yeah,
I see.
And they say, okay, you're allowed to do X number of feet.
Well, that also explains a lot of what Jeff was talking about earlier, where we're like, we think we can just get it all done each season, but it's like, well, there's real world restrictions, just like this in the swamp.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of sometimes we say, oh, they need the big dig. I mean, I know the money pit may be possible, but certainly not possible in a place like the swamp, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first place they dug there, Seth, right? They had to stop because they were encroaching on their permit parameters.
Yeah.
So they had to, like Rick said at the first of the episode last night, well, we got our new permits in, so now we can move.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Step by step.
Yep. I know. And this area that up here where that says the trench and the stone pile, this of course was the area that we few episodes of finding all those stakes, which I think I'm going back to what Tom was saying about them being, honestly, the whole fish trap, fish weirs things, I really like that idea, Tom. I really do.
Stockpiling them. Yeah.
Stockpile. They found all these logs piled up. There they are. I mean, they were all they were all haphazardly laying around there, but you would think so with storms and everything.
Or they could have been putting fences up. A lot of times in those coastal areas, they would have a stone road along the edge of the area, and then they'd have fence posts up along there to keep the livestock off from coming down into the swamp or the mud or the muck. And
yep,
it would be fenced off. So I mean, they could have been stockpiling them there for anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And and also marking out where they're going to build the road is also a possibility as well.
Like I say, you don't cut one at a time, right?
No.
You send a bunch of guys into the woods and you say, bring me back 100 posts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And you use 75 of them. Well, the other 25 are still sitting in a pile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking, why they would be there. So,
yep.
All right. And this was the area they're moving to next, was down here. This Tom's got it marked out there, 29,000 square feet.
That's huge.
Oh, that's a big one, yeah.
It is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So 7/10 of an acre. So it's big.
Yeah.
They put it all in meters, and I said, well, a lot of people still don't associate cubic or square meters and hectares and stuff like that. So I tried to put it in something that we can visualize.
Right. These casings over here on the side. Remember when I was talking about back in episode 1 and 2, I was talking about those well casings that were over there.
Yes.
That's where they were. That's the ones you could see them. The tram drove right down this road right here, and you could see these over there.
Yeah.
And these were the ones that Dan Blankenship had the Laginas drill when they first started working with him back in the day. He had them drill these casings over here because he wanted to see what was over there. So they did. Yes. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. Linda had to take care of somebody there. That's what she gets paid the big bucks for, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. There was just, I could spend so much time looking at these maps, and I won't take you all through that right now, but there's so much information in here. I'm still waiting for that dig on that ship shape anomaly. Well, in the swamp, in the middle of what seemed to be the linear set of man-made shapes, i.e. squared, rectangular, right in the middle. Well, we had a discussion with Mr. Jeremy Church, it's sitting right here, about that ship shape anomaly, and he kind of busted our bubble a little bit, or at least
Yeah, I mean, it's still it's a hell of a thing. I was looking back at all the data on that again, just reviewing for tonight, and it's really hard to make any sense of what that thing is. Like, I mean, that's what the data provided. There was no doctoring. I mean, it was the way that data is kind of extracted and processed is pretty straightforward. It's not very black box. It kind of made sense, right? Like where it's sitting. I mean, I never called it the ship-shaped anomaly. I resisted that, but the scale, the shape, it all made sense, and in the location of the swamp, it fits that theory very, very well. I think it makes a ton of logical sense.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I got excited when I saw that permit area, because I think that does overlap with where a lot of that.
It looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
The ship was more to the west, I think, than where a lot of the excavation was done in the swamp, from memory. So I think there's, and I think they found a few. Did they not find some what they believe to be ship parts or ship bores in that vicinity? So like it's still all going around. It's always been an interesting area to me. I remember floating around in the swamp in a boat over top of that area, and I was like, something that just feels a little different over there. And I wanted to see a little bit more kind of exploration.
Yeah, that's
Jack Campbell would be very happy to find.
I know Jack Campbell was all about that ship, man. He was, the only thing that deflated me on it kind of was when they went out there and they had that floating barge and they were drilling down through the barge in there and they didn't come up with any wood. But you take that, and like you said, Jeremy, about the pieces of wood that they found, and I go back to this quite a bit, is that metal strap that Gary found that when Carmen looked at it and said, this piece of metal strapping has been in a very hot fire.
Yep.
At some point, it was burnt badly on one end.
So
that plays right into that, doesn't it, Seth?
Yeah, and Kat in the chat keeps asking if it could be a what was it, Kat? Like a burn shadow? Like, sorry, if you're in the chat, type it again. She calls it an ash shadow or something.
Oh, yeah. So the ship was burnt, but there's all that remains is the ashes.
Yeah, I mean,
like
if I
that.
go back to how that seismic works, the way that was mapped in particular, basically the seismic energy is following the contoured shape of the material there, right? So if there is almost like a bulge remaining, a subtle bulge even remaining that was encasing, some body in there, it would produce that sort of a shape. It definitely could be a natural one, but it was indicating that there's kind of a bulge in the sediments with that kind of a morphology to it. So
that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Wow, that's good stuff. Yeah, it could be.
So the ship's back in play, guys.
Yeah, the ship's back in play. All right,
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Jack, where are you? You'd love to hear that. And by the way, thank you, Craig, for the helping to support the show. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. Very hot and sustained prolonged fire, he said. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's what Carmen had said. So makes sense. I mean, we do find those parts in there and kind of follows that whole. I still wonder
if the swamp was open at both ends and open to the sea, and as Jeremy said earlier, or when we talked earlier about where the actual hard bottom of the swamp is, a shallow draft ship or boat could easily go in there.
Yeah, like I think I read that even a large galleon ship fully loaded needed like 20 feet. Like their drafts were much shallower than more modern ships. So you didn't need to bring in a huge ship there and have plenty.
And when you're a mile from shore, you start throwing ballast stone over the side.
I think exactly.
I think the southeast corner swamp at one point was measured to be about 12 feet deep. I think when they were poking sticks down, right, even with all the muck and sediment in there. So,
well, you take all the gold and silver and everything off that ship, it's going to be a lot lighter. The draft won't be as deep. You can get
it. Who was it? Was Spooner or Tony or someone was going around with the metal rod that time poking?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and they were just touching the bottom, so put it as deep as they could get, and still makes a lot of logical sense. The swamp for sure.
Yes, that's true, Linda. There's old photos showing a row of fence posts, and also the electrical poles that run along the east side. There was a whole line of electrical poles that ran along the east side of the swamp, all the way down through there at one point too. So,
I mean, there had to be ships going right up in there because just the road, the stone platform. Like, I don't doubt that there was the fishing weirs and stuff as well, but I don't know. You don't do all that work just for getting around. They were unloading and loading ships.
You don't build those types of structures to fish off of.
No, exactly, and that's where we're headed to.
You don't need them. You build those types of structures to land a boat up against.
Yeah, let me continue on with the pictures here because there you see Billy starting to get into that area, and look at the stone he's finding. I mean, where have we seen this like this before? I mean, over on the stone road, up the platform, up at the north end. We've seen it all over the place. There's some more, and then look at this. There's another shot that I want to show you, but this shot right here kind of puts it into perspective a little bit. And this one here too, you see this area running along right here, all these stones that are actually on the surface of the greenery and vegetation, but look at that running along here.
Wow.
Okay.
A rocky beach, right?
Yeah. And you heard Rick say it's like a road leading from the beach to now he said the money pit. I don't know about that. I because it would need to turn and go across the swamp at some point to get over to the money pit, unless. And now remember too that the platform is right over here. That platform is right in that area there. It's not far away. If they were to connect it coming across right here, I mean, that would be one thing. But if it's running up here, now we know they said that it stopped when they got up to this area here. There was no stone on the north side of that. So where did it go? You know,
that's kind of the hard way to do it, though, isn't it? I mean, I like the idea of coming up the North Shore from Lot 5. You've got a shorter span between the two drumlins to build a bridge or to cross over.
Across here.
But who knows what their thought process was at the
From
time,
Lot
and
5 areas.
how high the water was at the time too. It may not have been a problem.
Exactly. So, I mean, but that just screams road. Now, I'm gonna throw out another. This was my wild speculation that I was talking about earlier. You know, you got the stone road over here, and we know. Look at that right there. That picture right there says a million. Okay, so we know that there was the stone road, and it's clearly a stone road across the southeast corner that I just showed in that one picture, right? Mm-hmm. So. And then we know that when Dr. Aaron Taylor was there, him and Miriam, and then they worked their way all the way up along that east side of the swamp, going from south to north, from the stone road all the way up by Nolan's house, right? Thank you, Robert. You never know. You know what? You never know. Wait for it. Surprise. So hear me out on this for a second. I'm going out on a limb here, just on a speculation. I was thinking about this a lot since last night's episode. All right. So if as we were kind of speculating here, talking about the road being, or those being stone roads, and the island being two separate islands to begin with. And Jeremy's going to share a little bit more of his information on that. And I cut that little clip out and I put it up on YouTube of when we were talking about the two island theory, and then your information that you were sharing with us on that. But okay, if you've got all that stone going up the east side, and then you take stone and you go on up the right side or the west side, okay, and you block off the end, like Tom was saying, up on the north end. And over time, would those not create like a barrier wall on each side to then allow that to start filling in with sediment and stuff over the storms and all that? If they could be used as a road, we found an ox shoe on it. They found an ox shoe. Why would there be an ox shoe over there? Could it also aid in creating the swamp in the first place, and maybe making it two or one island instead of two? I don't know. What do you think? Is that a stretch?
To me, as soon as you take away the flow of open water, sediment accumulates.
Oh, takes almost one storm surge is enough to fill it. We witnessed it, in fact, when at the tail end of the seismic program in there was kind of a storm that rolled in right at the end, and it, first of all, it filled the swamp in like an hour after we spent all summer trying to drain it. But it also did bring in a huge influx of sediment, came across the road at the front there that had to all be cleared. So it is not a stretch. Any constrictions, like you said, Tom, it will just start to pile up. And as it piles up more, it'll constrict even more. And before you know it, it's pretty filled up, right? Yeah.
So that's one of the things I had said in tonight's description of the show, was talking about the fact that, that these roads and their, on both sides of the swamp, and then they found a lot up there on the north end, and there seems to be some sort of a dam or something, or some kind of creation up there on the north end. That whole two island theory is really, I used to scoff at that. I did. I was always kind of like, no, it couldn't have been two islands. And Jeremy, you've talked about the fact that the eastern drumlin and the western drumlin are completely different makeup of.
There's no doubt the geological regimes are completely different on the two of them. So if you want to define it geologically, they are two separate islands, period, full stop.
Boom.
There's really nothing around that. Like they're completely different.
Here.
Yeah. It's it's okay to consider it one, but geologically, the definition, it is two separate islands because they're completely different beasts. And you see it when you're on the ground, right? When you're on the west side, it's a completely different animal. It's almost flat, right? And then the east side, it's quite hilly, right? It's a very large drumlin, and it's a very well researched, glacial feature, and makes total sense. But Yeah, and the seismic supports it, of course, too. I've shown that in the past, and probably touch on it again tonight.
Yeah, so it's crazy that you know, and again, we've talked about this many times as well, folks. I know I'm repeating myself here, but you know, to go to the effort of making these, we know that the stone platform that I just marked out there north of Nolan's Peninsula was created by that piece of wood that was smashed in between the rocks that Ian Spooner found and had tested, came back to be 1200s. If in fact that those things were created around the 1200s, now you've got the road on the east side, the road on the west side, the stones up in the north, the stone road down in the southeast corner, the big platform that's there. That is a monumental undertaking to build those things. For what purpose?
Mm-hmm.
It had to have a very, very important purpose to build those in the first place.
I don't think they were all built at the same time.
No, probably not.
Probably hundreds of years apart.
Could very well be. Did the Mi'kmaq build them? I don't think so.
Not likely.
You know? So, you know, again, you know, you get so many people that just kind of trash the show, because they want the treasure. That's all they care about is find that damn treasure. But man, I tell you what, all this stuff here that they're finding is just so significant in this whole story and this mystery. And then, you know, like as I was saying earlier about, you know, you found an ox shoe on that stone area, that stone pathway. You found an ox shoe. I don't think anybody, you know, found it laying on the ground and threw it over there, you know, and if oxen are pulling loads of stone over there so they can dump the stone into that area, and a shoe is going to break off occasionally. It's going to come off. And that's why you have a blacksmith on the island helping to make new ox shoes. But it makes sense that it was some sort of a pathway, a road of some sort.
Yep.
And we, you know, and he was, we heard Gary was looking at this. And he was talking about how it was kind of odd. And then Tom went back to
grab my oxen manual.
Yep, the oxen manual from Mr. Carmen Legg. And sure enough, here's a picture. Which one does that look like? Kind of looks like those wider ones there at the winter shoes.
I think it's a winter shoe, personally, the far right-hand side.
I agree with Tom. Good find.
And oxen shoes, people were asking today, or different people were, you know, well, what about the size? What about the oxen? Well, they started shoeing oxens, according to the book, when they were about a year to a year and a half old. So, I mean, an oxen is going to continue to grow for a long time. Big oxen, small oxen, depending on the size of the oxen, your shoes were anywhere from 3 inches to between 5 and 6 inches long, depending just strictly on the size of the animal. So
right.
The only thing that differentiates them is, I think, sometimes is the way that they're constructed. But I think most of the stuff they were finding there was British and French. So, but European, no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we do see Carmen show up on next week's preview. So, and maybe he'll be looking at this and maybe a few other artifacts that they found. So that'll be interesting to see what his opinion of these things are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you're spot on, Tom. I think it's right there. And there's shows them pulling in the wintertime and mowing grass and
the one in the middle is the one I like the best.
Yeah, look at that one in the middle there. What's that all? Now they're loading or unloading fish,
but they're using them in the water along the shore.
Yes.
Which I don't think you'd ever get. Well, I shouldn't say get away with it with a horse. It wouldn't be as easy with a horse.
Correct.
Because of the uneven bottom. I know they do use horses in Newfoundland for different things along the shore, but again, right out of Carmen's book.
Yeah. And this is kind of what we talked about. You have a bigger ship out, you know, anchored out, and you got the small boats coming in with all the gold and silver and all that kind of stuff.
If he loses a shoe in there, you're not going to see it. Right? Yeah, it's gone.
Exactly.
Like if you lose a shoe on a road or a pathway above water, you might find it. You might not either, because they're big animals.
Oh, there. Speaking of Carmen Lake, there he is. Look at that. Carmen, we're talking about you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just saying that I'm gonna step on a limb and assume
asking questions, Carmen. No, we got all the answers right here, pal.
They're in your book. Yeah. So, well, thanks for coming by, Carmen. Appreciate that. But yeah, so we were just talking about this ox shoe, and Tom whipped out your book to get a look at it, and so we're thinking a winter shoe. So I know that if you did go to the island to look at this piece, you can't really talk about it, but that's what we're saying. So, but yeah, that picture right there, that one really got me right there. I mean, if that's not unloading in the swamp and the cart is on top of the cobble, even though it's covered in water a little bit, but it's on the cobble road right there. Boy, oh boy, that's kind of what we've been talking about, right? All right. Well, let's continue on. I just grabbed this picture because I said, oh my goodness.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's incredible.
Folks, all that spaghetti you see there is all boreholes that have been drilled. Sorry, no, yeah, but it is an ox shoe. Yes, thank you. Figured you'll be giving us all the details we need next week on next week's episode, or the one after at least. But I just had to grab this because, oh my gosh, isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
It is amazing. I can't imagine.
And to think at the bottom of that, there's a solutions channel that's been less than 5% investigated.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, and the solution channel makes sense why, after looking at that, you still haven't found any gold. Because I think, and goodness, that's so much drilling that, should we even stand on top of this?
Exactly.
How could they not have found something? But, but they have found things. They just haven't found treasure. But, it's all that green, outline of the solution channel is the explanation for how, with all this drilling, have they still not found the treasure?
Yeah. Running like in here like this. Something like that.
Yeah.
In that mess. That's crazy. That is crazy. If you want, I can send you that if you want it. Well, I just had to grab that picture because it just blows me away. That's all those boreholes. Anyway. All right. So, yeah. Well, I'm hoping that Carmen had a look at that hand cannon. Oh yeah, see, I wish I could talk about it. So we'll find out. Don't press him. He's got an NDA to worry about. We understand that very clearly.
We'll have you back.
Yep, we'll get him to come on at some point and talk about all these things after it airs. All right, we're going to do tonight's giveaway, and what we have is this. And when I first saw this, what is wrong with that T-shirt? That's not a T-shirt. It's actually a blanket. And then this keychain down here, Oak Island Treasure keychain, made in Nova Scotia. And you said Michelle Tomeyer donated these for us?
Yes, she did.
All right. So real quick on these, we do a giveaway every week, and this started because people were giving us things to give away, so we decided to make a regular thing of it because we had so many pieces. And so what it is that we do these. Linda will put these out. She'll put a picture of it out on our Facebook group page, which there's a link for down below in the description of the show. And she'll put it out as a post on our Facebook group page. All you have to do is comment yes on that post, and you are automatically entered into the drawing for the giveaway. And you must be present at the podcast to win. If you don't say you're here after a few moments, then we will spin again until we get a winner. So, all right. What do you think, Linda? Was that close?
That's pretty darn close. And everybody's all concerned, but I do have a voice this week. I'm not going to sit here and growl at everyone.
Well, you growl at me all the time, but well, never mind. That's
different.
That's a different
growl. You deserve it. You deserve it.
I don't. I'm
all right. Yeah. I'm not talking a lot, but I do have enough voice that you can hear me instead of me just sort of.
Okay.
Okay. So once you've won once, you can't re-enter again until the finale. And let me just say that Michelle Tomeyer is good for us. She is good to us. Mm-hmm. And she has already sent me a package with things to give away for this year. And there's another one in the mail that should be here in the next 2 days.
Wow.
So we appreciate Michelle a lot. We kind of get bogged down in what we're giving away sometimes, and it's the same thing over and over. But Michelle always has fun ideas.
Yep, for sure. All right. Are you ready to spin a roo?
I am ready.
All right. We'll put you in solo layout.
Spin that wheel.
I need you to say that.
Wouldn't be the same if you didn't.
All right. Here we go. Yep. Right there. Gail Richards, are you here?
Gail,
let us know if you're in the chat. You must be present to win. So let us know if you're here. Gail, we know we got about a 15 second.
I see your chat back a while ago there. Yep, 9:35 my time. She's around.
All right. Maya says she looks forward to Seth saying that. Oh, Gail, right there.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. She just put something in the chat a few minutes ago there. Yeah.
Yep.
First try this time.
All right. Good deal. All right. Congratulations.
Gail, if I don't have your name and address in my giveaway book, would you message me with that after the show? And I'll get this sent out to you hopefully on Friday.
All right.
Hopefully.
Yes. Hopefully.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. All right. I tell you what, that is one hard-working woman right there, taking care of us and keeping us in line and kicking out the people that just don't
keeps
seem
the page going. Her and Jan.
She really does, and the Facebook group page. I tell you that. Yep. And tonight, I also wanted to mention too that we had
Christy.
Christy are working on our synopsis for us. Christy did the synopsis this week. She's going to do she just got a new laptop, so she's going to do her best for doing the synopsises for us. So thank you very much, Christy. We appreciate we appreciate all the hard work on that, because that's not an easy task. So thank you for stepping up and working on that for us. All right. So now let's jump into the big part of the show tonight, the money pit. You know, this over the course of, and as I mentioned early in the show tonight, in this whole season thus far, 6 episodes, and Jeremy, I think, has only seen the first 5 because he lives in Alberta, Canada, and he doesn't get to see the 6th episode until Sunday. But they've been talking about the solution channel. The treasure has fallen down in the solution channel. And then, and I thought, man, who knows so much more about this, what's underneath that money pit, than this man right here, Mr. Jeremy Church with Panther Geoscience. So I'm so glad. Thank you again for coming on the show tonight and kind of talking to us about this, because this solution channel, as we see in this picture here, they're working on F8.5. And I get a little confused on the depths of things. I'm going to kind of just, right here, we're talking, they were an 8.5, they were working. We're working at the 178 to 202 area. But is there, I'm so confused about the different levels of water. I mean, save me here, Jeremy. Is it possible that these were just open cavities at one time and then got flooded and filled in with water?
This is essentially how they are formed. It requires water, actually. It requires a water fill to dissolve the limestones and anhydrites that underlays. So they are full of water. There is no doubt about that. And then all the material in there that ties into the story of, and what the data is saying about the soil / clay is coming from the surface essentially, and it's getting down in there through a certain mechanism that I guess I'll talk about here in a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, because that's, I thought at one point I was thinking, because they talk about the flood tunnels, and I thought maybe there really isn't a flood tunnel. I mean, I got concerned about that. I was thinking maybe these were open cavities or caves or whatever that they decided to use because they were there already. And they said, oh, well, we could use these without having to do a whole lot of digging. And so they use these things. But if they're flooded, they wouldn't have been able to use those things back then. So it's really always confused me a little bit about that, whole thing. And was the flood tunnel really a flood tunnel, or was it a cave or one of their tunnels that filled in with water at some point?
Right. And would any of them been accessible from like a shoreline, but now would be covered up by water and material? That's kind of what I wonder too. Yeah, because when you showed us the images, it blew my mind, and that it also made me despair because I thought there's no hope of finding treasure if it's in there.
Yeah, I think once I kind of explain the geological mechanism, how they're formed, I think there's a plausible scenario of how maybe there was a feature near surface or at surface that could have been exploited by whoever the people are. I won't speculate on that, but could have been exploited for some reason. And it ties into, it made it accessible for people at the surface. I mean, I hate to say it, people are inherently lazy, so they're looking for something to make their life easier. And this would have made their life easier. And then second of all, it ties into the team's theory that whatever was in there has dropped down. So something was used closer to surface, but it is also a conduit down to this deeper system. But the deeper system is what creates the shallower component. So I'll explain that, I guess, once you kind of unleash me here.
Okay, yeah. Let me cover just a couple more of these screens here that I have. This is that, and you see this white right here. That is the bedrock. That's when they drill down, and you've heard them talk about. In one instance on the show, they were talking about drilling down. They had here it was here. This one core sample, this one here on the table, was 178 to 208, and they hit bedrock at 205. So they drilled into it 3 feet, and that's what you're seeing with his hand on right here. And at that sonic drill, when it's going down into that bedrock, it's grinding it up. It's pulverizing it. And that's why it comes out to be a powder with small little rocks in it and stuff like that, because of the sonic drill rig. And then also we had that chip that broke off. One of the little points on one of the drill broke off, and everybody got excited about the fact that it might be a coin. And then, Scott Barlow comes over, of course, and blows everybody out. Yeah, sorry, folks. This is just a piece of a drill bit, and just kind of poo-pooed on everything. And
he was kind of the grim reaper on that one, eh?
Yeah, we were all excited.
Yeah. Piece of hardened steel, yeah.
Yeah, a piece of hardened steel. They did get a metal detection hit, as they did last week. And then they couldn't find it. They were looking, and we got a hit, and they're searching through the muck and trying to find it. And it just never produced a piece of metal. It's like a phantom hit. It disappeared. And so the question comes up, and you've seen them taken and even when Gary came over with his metal detector, nope, couldn't find anything in that sample where they got that pinpointer hit. He couldn't find anything. So I'm thinking right away, what is it in the soil? And that's when they were taking some of that mud and they were putting it in a bag, and you see them throw it in there. And I think we're going to see next week, we're going to see Emma's, I think on that, they took it over to her to kind of evaluate to see if there was any kind of metals coming up in the samples, precious metals, hopefully, but we'll find out. And I kind of alluded, sometimes the previews aren't completely clear if it's next week or down the road. So hopefully we'll get to find out. But and I'm going to throw this question out to you guys and to the chat before we go too much farther on that, to say, is that, I do know for a fact that you can get those phantom hits. I've had them myself when I'm out metal detecting. But if that is in the mud, would it, and you've heard Ian Spooner say that it's not naturally occurring, but I'm wondering, is it? Is it something in the water that has permeated the mud, and it's all part of that now, giving these phantom, you saw it in the wood when she had those wood samples. What's your thoughts on it? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think I think when Dr. Spooner's talking, he talks about the metals not being naturally occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He doesn't say specifically gold or silver.
Correct. Yeah, that's true.
He just says metals not being naturally occurring, which to me says that, like when we looked at the zinc and the different, sources of metal around the province, and we looked at those maps, that whatever metals that they're finding, are associated with those ancient treasures are not naturally occurring metals in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if they're not naturally occurring, then they're attached to something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Thoughts, Seth? What do you think?
I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that all the material would be not tricking, but that Spooner would read it in high enough levels to think that gold is still there if it's just like a remnant left in the water or the wood. Last season Emma detected wood or gold in some of the wood that got out of the money pit, and that was exciting. Right. And you had told, I think maybe it was last episode where we were talking about, maybe it was Katya or Gary got a hit and then nothing was there. And they discussed, and you discussed too, how a lot of times just corrosion, if something's corroding away, you'll get a hit and then you dig it up and nothing's there, but it's just the residue of that corroded object. So
rust.
Could that be happening here in the money pit? I just don't know enough. For me, it's I have to trust the expert and assume that Ian would account for thinking what sort of levels would be left over if a large amount of treasure was there for a long time and then removed. So, and I'm with Tom too. If it's not natural, I assume that's what he means, that, accounting for whatever natural levels that could or would be there, this is well above it. So I'm hopeful it's not just gold and mud, because
yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I've had that, and somebody, it was Matt. I have a Garrett. I use Garrett Ace Apex is the one I'm currently using. But I do like Mine Labs too. Mine Lab does make really nice equipment, but I have a Garrett, this one that I'm using right now. And that was from Gypsy Jules, recommended that one for me. She actually,
nice.
Yeah, she actually is a sponsor for those. We're sponsored by Garrett. And then real quick too, I'll kind of run through these pictures here real fast. Ian was out there, and you see these done. Tom and I were talking about these. These were old boreholes that they put the pipe in there so they could continue to get their water samples from down below. And we were talking about these ones with the cones sitting on top of them so they don't run over them with anything. You see them all over the place. He went out there with his baler and put his baler down, and he was talking about which one. And I was looking at these on the map too. It was BN or B. It was up on the B line. So in other words, it was up there by the baby blob, and the blob and the baby blob is where they were taking these water samples from. And you can see there's several of them there that he's looking at. It was really kind of blew us away. Anyway, we were all watching, and we kind of blew us away when there's the picture of the baler. But he brings the baler up, and it's got the red dye in it. And we're like, we're asking everybody else, did we miss an episode? Because they talked about, they put this red dye in there last year, which had been summer of 2024, that they put this red dye in there. And we're like, was that on the show? When did I miss that?
Yeah, I missed it.
Did you, you guys didn't see it, did you? You don't remember them?
I don't recall it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right, exactly. And it did, obviously. So they put this red dye down there. And now they are kind of on the north end of the money pit area here, not as far north as you can go, but they're on the north end. It's up there by the garden shaft. Ian said it came from the south. Now, this is where I'm really going to, one of the questions that I have for Jeremy, and they talk about the plunging, the going down there and drilling, and then everything else, and all the water that they put in when they're doing the drill process into each borehole, and it's pushing it and it's plunging it like a toilet plunger, plunging it up into higher levels of water. And now he's up here getting these samples with the dye in it when he put it in further south, into boreholes further south. I don't know. Jeremy, what do you think? I mean, what What is that telling you when you find dye in these shallower areas?
Yeah, I mean, that's up shallower. I agree. There's probably some sort of a plunging effect, for lack of a better term, for with all the activity in the pit. Like, it's definitely moving around much deeper. It's like Swiss cheese down there. The rock is Swiss cheese, so it's moving in there. But how it's getting up shallower is, the mechanics of that I'm not 100% on, but I suspect, like you said, it could be from the activity, and maybe some of the tidal movement as well is moving it up hole, perhaps. The other thing is, you got to remember, is there's fresh water mixing with saline water on the island here in the subsurface. That creates certain kind of phenomenon movement as well. Fresh water will sit on top of salt water, so there's complex mechanisms, right? I'm not an expert on that subject for sure, but it's not a stretch that the what's going on the island is adequate to push dye from deeper down up to a shallower level for sure.
Yeah. And that's what he made it his description on that. He was talking about, and I'll show you this picture here real quick too. Oops, that's the one where they were adding it. They were looking back, and they never aired any of this for us, so we didn't see any of it. But okay, so they're finding up here, they're finding the samples with the dye in it up in this area here.
Sorry,
he said, what's that?
Sorry to cut you off there for a second. What was the depth that they got the dye at? Did you?
105. 105.
Yeah, 105.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently had put the dye in, he said, south of that, which would be over here somewhere, and then showing up over here. Now, it didn't, well, I'm making an assumption that it didn't show up last year. After they put the dye in, it didn't show up here. But now it is, a year later, it's coming out. It's showing up in the water. And it was prominent in that water. I mean, you saw that baler coming up, and that's a clear tube. It was all red.
Sorry to cut you off one more time, Jeff.
No, please go ahead.
What depth did they inject it at? Do you know that?
No, I don't. That I don't know. But he said it was solution channel.
Okay, so it was down at the solution depth. Okay.
Yeah, so my guess would be he said they put it in the traditional, what they thought to be the traditional money pit area, and I think that would be down in the 160 to 180 feet probably.
Yep.
Right depth, yeah.
Yeah. So that just they talked to you said the same words that they talked about, conduit. It's some sort of a conduit allowing for, they're all connected somehow or another. And somebody mentioned in the chat about go check Wayne Pierce, said go check 10X for dye. I'm like, yeah,
that was my question. Like, you see where you drew your circle, where they probably dumped the dye, where they found the dye, connect the dots and keep on going. You're headed for 10X.
Yep.
You're connected to Smith's Cove is really what you are. There's clear evidence from my work that this whole thing connects to Smith's Cove. So it's all passing through that whole area on the east side.
Wow. Question I have, Jeremy, is if they put this dye in, whether it was 8 months ago or 10 months ago or 12 months ago, it really doesn't matter. It's somehow gotten trapped in there.
Yeah.
And in theory, we have ebbs and flows of tidal water going in and out. How does it get trapped?
Well, it's a pretty tortuous path down there. I think that's the best way. Like, there's going to be a lag to it. I think it's not obviously an open pipeline. It's a tortuous kind of, I mean, you guys have all seen cave systems on, in various media, and it's, they're not straight lines. They're very rarely. There could be little pockets, and that's the nature of the beast. That's how it dissolves. It dissolves in little pockets here and there. It's very rarely a perfectly linear kind of process. It's a little pocket here, a little pocket there. They slowly interconnect to create a greater system. And so I suspect that, it's a very complex system down there. You inject it in one spot, it's going to go through this gnarly path, and it will take some time to kind of come out another portal. So
yeah. And one last picture, and then I'm Go ahead, Tom, please.
When we saw Spooner take his samples last year from that same area, he didn't pull up anything pink, did he?
No.
So maybe they did the dye test after that. Hard to say.
Yeah, this is where it came out. And according to what he was saying, they put it in down here somewhere. And it's showing up there. And then the solution channel you see runs right up through there. But he wasn't in my opinion, he wasn't bailing at solution channel depths.
No.
That's kind of, so it had to have gotten pushed up in there somehow or another.
Their target this year for solution channels was 210 to 215.
Yes. Is that about right for the solution channel, Jeremy, and your data?
Well, there's two solution systems.
Okay.
Cat's out of the bag now. There are two solution systems. There is a larger, more cave-like system, which is the shallower one that we'll say starts at 150 feet. From my calculations, it's can be between 15 to 30 feet in kind of thickness. And this plays into that very kind of sporadic, intermittent kind of dissolution process. There is a second deeper system that exists somewhere in that 200s plus kind of depth, up to, I think I've seen numbers as high as 240, I've heard.
Wow.
So, and very clearly in the seismic, it images two separate systems. But they are very different kind of geometries to them. The upper system, like I said, is more, to me, and that's where I kind of diverge a bit in the theory that it's a channel so much in the shallower depths. To me, it's more of a truly more like a cavern type cave system, but it's filled full of junk, right? And it might lead to some inconsistent or difficult to interpret details from the sonic drill sometimes, I think, because there's so much crazy material and rubble and other stuff down there. But from the seismic standpoint, it really shows a large cavernous kind of low density area, which is what I'd be looking for. And then you have a slightly denser area in some places, and then you see the secondary solution system down deeper, and it's more linear, like it's more, and I have some models, because caves and dissolution systems are very well studied because they have a lot of implications in civil, in civil applications. People's homes fall into sinkholes, like it's a major problem in a lot of places. It's been studied very heavily. So there's a lot of models and cartoons I've included kind of to show you like what's, been studied for a long, long time, and how they understand it. And the geometries of the two match, like what I saw in the seismic match very well to a lot of the well-established kind of models that have been used for a long time.
Yeah. Wow. If you've got some stuff that you would like to show us, go ahead, please. You can.
You ready, hey?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let her go.
Okay, let me just share my screen here.
All right.
Just give me a second here.
Yeah, this is something, like I said, that I've really been interested in. And now, and I'm sure you'll kind of touch on this as well, but we've, with all these boreholes, and that's that one screen I showed you with all those little worms, spaghetti running everywhere. They put so many boreholes into this whole thing that it is very feasible in my mind that they can now get that dye to come up through another one. So, all right, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is recycling of, a presentation I did about just over a year ago for you guys, but I'll just do a quick recap on seismic, just kind of a little crash course for who's here. We use two different types of seismic on Oak Island. There's one called reflection seismology, and that's kind of the real star of the show. It's what's been developed for nearly 100 years now, with the great benefit of oil and gas kind of funding, trying to, because it is the primary tool for exploring for oil and gas in most of the world. So it's really been developed very well. So it's a really well-known tool. But like any tool, it's an imperfect tool. Seismic, it does a good job. It gives you at the end a pseudo image, we call it, but it's most akin to looking at kind of video game graphics of reality. It's not giving us it's not giving us photograph quality, right?
Right.
So that's something to always keep in mind when we're looking at these images. That being said, there's some tools and kind of tricks to getting the most out of the data and making it really, really look good and make it easier to interpret, because that's really the tough part here is the interpretation. The other one is refraction seismology. That's the one that I used with the ship-shaped anomaly. It's still the same energy. It's just it's a different mode of movement. So we'll just stick to reflection seismology in this talk. The reason why we used it here on the island, I get a lot of questions why then you use GPR or something like that. The problem is the solution channel, the depths of the money pit are really too deep to have effective GPR penetration, especially because it's so filled full of water. Because GPR is an electromagnetic wave, it attenuates really quickly, and you don't have the penetrating power that you need. Seismic, on the other hand, has amazing penetrating power. It goes through water, it goes through solids, and it goes as deep as you want. We obviously miniaturized it for the island here, kind of pushed the limits of what we could with the gear, because usually the gear is used in much larger applications, but the final result was quite reasonable and everything worked out as good as I kind of hoped. So it was a great tool here. Just keep in mind that it's an imperfect tool. Don't really need to look at this. It just shows you send energy down. They're called acoustic waves. You're basically deforming the material, and that's why it works so good at penetrating, is you basically bump the material, and then that bump just moves all the way down, and it sends you a return signal every time it hits an interface where there's a change in density. And that's the key that we're really after here. The seismic is sensitive to changes in density, and that's why it is effective at imaging what we're after here. Now, the sad part is we're not going to see a treasure chest with it. We have basically seismic information every 3 feet on basically the entire east side of the island. So you have a sample point every 3 feet. That works out to, like, I think 180,000 seismic traces or sample points. So we covered the island pretty good, about as good as you can with seismic. It's still going to be tough to pick out, with what we're describing as a treasure chest, even 6 feet in size. But it does help answer the question geologically in the money pit, what is really going on in here. So here's just a quick overview of where we shot seismic on the island. So of course you've got the swamp shot. You've got this huge East Drumlin one, we call it, the big red one. We have the money pit one, of course. We did do one on Nolan's property, and then we were talking earlier about the latrine that was up in this area, actually. So this is your lot 15's up more here. That latrine talk was over in this program, kind of further east, but lots of data. We use this little thumper tool and these tiny little pentolite explosives. These pentolite explosives are military grade. They're very energetic. So even though they're just tiny, they're like firecrackers. You'll see in this little video here, if anyone remembers, we're just over here actually behind those casings that you see have vaporized a 3-foot stump there. So that's just one of these charges. So even though they're tiny, they send a lot of energy down. We need that to kind of get down as deep as we need it to. We also have, this is good LiDAR information. It also kind of illustrates with the vertical exaggeration how you do have 2 distinct islands. It's pretty clear.
Love that picture. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's really amazing. You can see the topography on the east side relative to the west side. So pretty dramatic. We'll skip the regional geology here.
You did mention real quick, I just want to, there's something about a line. You said there's a line that runs right through.
Yes.
Right through that whole thing of where it separates one side from the other.
Yeah, I'll sneak to that. Yeah, sorry, it's not a super polished presentation. I'll just try.
That's okay. We're not polished, so yeah.
We're not even shiny.
This is an example though this is actually this is the beginning of that kind of geological regime discussion I was talking about. this is an outcrop of the Halifax slate. This is kind of what it looks like when it's just exposed at the surface. This big, huge, massive chunks of this stuff underlay the west side of the island. So the whole west side of the island is basically a thin layer of glacial till, which is basically clay laying on top of this hard stuff.
Right.
But
so that's from the swamp to lot 1, basically.
Correct. And then, so then I'll sneak in. I'm going to segue into that for you, Jeff, here in 1 second.
Yep.
East side of the island, it's a drumlin, but there's none of that Halifax slate underneath. It's sitting on kind of more shallow marine limestones and things like that. But what you have is this huge blob of glacial till. And so these are kind of examples of, surface, really obvious kind of surface glacial deposits. Here's a nice drumlin here in the bottom right there. A little more elongate and a smaller scale than Oak Island, but gives you an idea of how these things kind of look. And it's not a stretch now when you look at the east side of the island that it is, got that same smooth kind of directional profile. And they're deposited as the ice retreats. Chunks of stuff basically are dropped, and as it pulls away, it smooths it all out, gives it that nice smooth shape. Here's what you're asking about, Jeff, is this is a line. So if you look in the bottom right there, here's that LiDAR image again. Basically, that data set that we shot over the swamp, it just touches the west side of the island, but just enough to see. If you look here on my cursors, can everyone see that?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. So all these are called reflectors in seismic speak, and they're quite massive looking. They're big, thick reflectors. These are part of those Halifax slate and other kind of associated, like they're igneous metamorphic type rocks. They're massive, heavy, thick. And then you have all this kind of junk up here, kind of weak reflectors. That's the glacial till. And the next image I show you will kind of have it annotated so you can kind of see. But basically, you got the west side of the island just propped up on top of this thing, but you see this ragged edge. That's it, subcropping.
Yeah, okay.
And then all these nice higher resolution or higher frequency kind of reflectors. That's that more clay and sand rich glacial till drumlin sitting on top of the east side of the island. So if I go down to this image, I've basically got like a little cross section. And so this kind of a real simple cartoon. I've got the slate drawn in there. So that's down here. You got that thin veneer glacial till, this in-between area. So there's like a little sag there. It's like a hinge point. And that's where the swamp wanted to settle in. The water sits in low. And then, of course, you've got this big wad of glacial material dropped as a drumlin out here. Now, of course, sea level is lower here too, right? This so this is limestone and some sort of carbonate, anhydrites, gypsums. It was all exposed. And then this wad of glacial till was dropped on top. And that's really what it is. It's two separate pieces in a really simple nutshell. It was really never one. They're just two completely different geological regimes. So it's. Any questions on that? Does that seem?
Wow, no, thank you though. I'm glad we're going over this again because this is really good stuff. Thank you.
It's fascinating. I mean, when I saw that, because I wasn't sure either, but when I saw that seismic line, I was like, oh yeah, it's very clear that there's.
Well, it really helps tie it all together now that you can see, because everybody said, oh, swamp, was it open, was it closed, 2 islands, 1 island, but now you can see, we can tie this back to what we're seeing now and what they're finding in this in what's been actually constructed on the edge of each island, right? Then this now even makes greater sense, really, when you think about it.
Great. All right, so we'll dive into what we all want to talk about. Money today. So this is a real nice aerial image that I've been using since 2019, and I'm showing this now because there's a number of surface elements that also support this whole multi-level dissolution system. I want you to pay close attention to these kind of circular features here. I remember walking around Smith's Cove before they built the coffer dam a few years back, and I could see these things. I was like, what the hell are these round things? It was really quite interesting. So I'm going to touch on that near the end. The other thing is this cave-in pit, or this little sinkhole lake. This kind of represents an earlier stage of the dissolution process that has affected the money pit area. Put another way, I believe this is how the money pit area looked earlier on. Obviously, there's been so much activity with all the searchers. It's completely destroyed any of that evidence, but this little kind of cave in the lake is being formed because there is dissolution happening below it as well. And that's all part of this whole system, like I said, that goes all the way up to Smith's Cove.
And I wanted to just say to the people that are asking questions out there, hey, we love your questions, and I want to get these questions to Jeremy. Let's let him go a little bit here, and then we'll go back and revisit. So don't forget your question, and they are important to us. So I just want to let you know that. So we'll get to the questions here in just a moment.
Okay. And then obviously here's one of these models I just grabbed from the net that just shows real simple kind of description of what's happening in a cross-section view of this kind of beginnings of a dissolution system, but it makes total sense. So very early on, you just get, so the other thing I have to mention is that kind of those carbonates that are underlay what we call the bedrock, they were exposed, and before any glaciation happened, they were actually exposed at the surface to rain and what we call meteoric waters. And that's how the dissolution process starts. So these cave systems were already well formed before any glaciation happened, because they had to be exposed. They had to let the water get in there and the chemistry start dissolving the rock. So start slowly, but as you start to get dissolution, you start to get subsidence at the surface, ponds start to form. So that's your cave-in pit. That's why it exists there. But it's a hint as to what's going on in the larger system. Here's another real simple cartoon, and kind of really the backbone of the interpretation I've given the seismic here, and I think it makes a ton of sense. It's called a covered collapse sinkhole, and it happens when you have a clay-rich overburden, which is glacial till on the island here. It's very clay. You hear Marty complain about it all the time. So what happens is you had this dissolution happening. It was already very well formed, but then glaciation came and it covered up with all this clay. But as the cave continues to dissolve, you start to have that clay collapse in and starts to build up inside the cave. And this is where a lot of that soil material and junk that they find down in there, it's coming from, because it was caving in from the surface. And it continues to happen. And then what happens is eventually it collapses in and it slumps down and creates this depression. This is where the story kind of ties into what the boys saw in 1795. Was there a depression at the surface here that was exploited? And what's really cool about this is the depression is really at the epicenter of the cave. And so if this was exploited, it's not a stretch that if they didn't put it down into the cave system, they kept in a shallower kind of regime that was easier to access above the water table, but it's not a stretch that could slowly migrate in as things continue to collapse. So here's just another example, modern analog grab of what it might have looked like if somebody came to the money pit area before anything had happened. Is this what these quote unquote lazy people will say? People tend to be lazy. Oh, this looks like something that we can dig easier because it's more unconsolidated. It's already low. Can we put something in here?
Interesting.
That's a question for everyone, of course. I won't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I won't theorize on the motives or anything like that, but it's not a stretch that somebody would be like, that looks like a place to.
And this cave in that you're showing over here in this left picture, in the cartoony picture, is like what would have happened with the cave in pit.
Correct. Right? Yeah. This would have filled in with water, but then eventually sometimes it breaches, right? the base will breach, and it may lose the water. So obviously here, this is not filled in with water. Perhaps the money pit was at that stage. It wasn't filled with water, or it had water and it had breached, and there's nothing at surface.
I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, especially if you're experienced in digging holes or mines or shafts or burying things, you're going to look around. You're going to find a spot that looks, hey, this looks like a great spot to dig. This should be easy digging based on what we know about other caves and caverns and treasures or whatever we've hid, buried, dug, whatever. It makes a perfect choice for a spot.
And I think because of its unconsolidated nature too, I think that would have made life a lot easier too with the digging if you're within that kind of sinkhole part. Everything's already broken up for you a little bit.
And it makes sense too, because Tom talks about how hard digging is up there. You know, all these rocks in everybody's backyard, and well, they weren't digging through rock; they were digging through something like this to get to those depths. You know, not that they couldn't have done it if they needed to, but I was always thinking how hundreds of years ago are guys with hand-driven tools getting through that material.
And I wonder if that is an ancient technique. I don't know enough about the history of shafts and mining, but perhaps they did try to exploit things like this on the surface. I don't know. It'd be an interesting topic to kind of look into.
Yeah.
So here's kind of a first glimpse of the seismic. I wouldn't, this is just a cross-sectional view of the seismic. It looks pretty wild, and that's why it takes a lot of years to learn how to interpret it, because it does make an image, but it can be a chaotic image. So on the left is something called, what we just kind of call basic seismic. This is kind of what it looks like coming out. You've got these alternating sets of reflectors with, there's peaks and troughs, different polarities, and basically each one of these kind of blue or yellow lines, that's like a reflection. There's some sort of density change happening there, and a reflection is coming back. But to really simplify things, you can convert the seismic into something called acoustic impedance, which is really the true physics behavior that we're exploiting with seismic. It's physical property. And what it is it's a combination of how fast energy travels through the material, so velocity, but more importantly, density in this case. It's sensing density changes. So the grays and blacks, those are low density regions. The reds are high density, and the yellows and greens are kind of more mid-grade kind of densities. So right away you can see where I got my yellow box there. That's a large, low density kind of, almost circular feature, and that's the cave. So that's the upper, what they're calling the solution channel, I'm calling more of a larger cavern type low density feature. Down below that, that's the more linear solution channel, or I'll even call it a solution river. And there's a model also I'll show that kind of supports that kind of geometry to it. So they're both dissolution features, but they're a little different.
So your scale, Jeremy, on the left-hand side going down, what's the measurement there? Is that feet?
So that's unfortunately in time. This is just
okay.
So seismic is measured in time. That is one of the difficulties with it. So it's measured in travel time. So the converter.
So we're looking at a track, a music track almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it is the fourth dimension time. It's just, it's not. So you convert time to depth using velocity. So if you know how fast the energy moves through the rock or the subsurface, you can convert that time into depth. That is one of the bigger problems with seismic, is every different lithological unit or material down there moves a little different speed. So there's techniques to recover that information. But the neat part here on Oak Island, because everything's happening so shallow and close to the surface, and the till is pretty homogeneous, the velocity is pretty constant from all the work that I did. So depth estimates are fairly reasonable. So this first large low density region, this comes out to be around 150 feet when I do the depth conversion using those constant velocities. So it's right on with what they're seeing with their boreholes and the historical information.
Yep.
Same thing, these little dark, subtle, low density areas, those are part of the searcher tunnels. And I will touch on them quickly, and they're all around 100 feet, we'll say, give or take. That's kind of their median depth, it seems like, is 100 feet. So once again, the velocity I used, I was able to ground truth it because we had some known depths. It all made sense. Everything went around. And then this deeper solution channel, that's around 200 plus feet. So all the numbers are going around in terms of what they're seeing with the boreholes. So yeah, so here's what like I mentioned, I'm just going to touch on quickly because we did talk about them a lot the last time. This is that 100-foot, 75 to 100-foot depth geobody. So the other thing I did in my work was there's another tool I can use to basically say, I want to shrink wrap only these features with these ranges of acoustic impedance or density. I only want the low density regions because we know that that's either some sort of a cavern or some sort of a tunnel. We assume.
And water would be considered low density?
Well, yeah, water would be definitely lower density for sure. Okay. So, and that's the neat part. I did calculations to be like, okay, what kind of densities am I getting in these caverns? And it's definitely not the density of water. It's higher than water, but it's not as dense as the solid expected material, say clay. So as we see with the drill bit, they bring up that slurry that Terry gets so worked up about. When he sees the slurry coming up, he's happy because it's it's mostly water, but it is filled with muck, and it's all that clay that fell down in. It all collapsed in over time. So I shrink wrap those low density anomalies at this 75 to 100 foot range. This I believe to be searcher tunneling, whether it's intact or collapsed, it's still somewhat a lower density than kind of the native kind of clay fill, or even the clay backfill after they did fill in the big digs. Like I mentioned, it's not a photograph. It's an imperfect tool. It's not razor sharp, so that's why they don't look like nice, perfectly straight square tunnels, and they are probably deformed because they have collapsed. So there's a little bit of both things going on, but there is very definitely a tunneling low density system that goes from, so this is essentially the center of the garden shaft region. This was kind of an epicenter of searcher tunnels. And then one of them went directly over to C1, and C1 doesn't get talked about very much anymore, but it was a real key well or borehole or caisson, I guess, but it ties into the greater story, which ties it into H8. H8 is really, really key. But regardless, we're told the searchers knew where they're going. They were tunneling to C1. There's something that they liked over here. This unusual looped arm here, unsure what to make of it. I know Rick mentioned back when I presented this that there was talk of the searchers had basically tunneled around something. I can't remember the full details on that.
I thought one time that they'd actually done a spiral tunnel to go down.
Yeah, something like that. And the geometries they're much more complex than, it's essentially a cartoon of reality what we're looking at, but it is definitely hinting that tunneling was done here. The other really cool anomaly is this multi-forked, or this forked anomaly that I believe I showed last time I was on here. This one's cool because one of the arms points straight at H8, and what happens in between C1 and H8 I think is the real kind of most important part of the story here in the Money Pit. So the searchers were definitely zeroing in on something, and we're told they knew where they're going. We're told that they did find it, so that goes around. We can do a quick little video here. Kind of fly into these anomalies.
This is so cool.
You can see inside of these. Sorry, it's a little jerky. It is hard to kind of drive it really smooth, but you're going to come inside now. Now you can, and it looks like a collapsed tunnel of some sort. It's kind of deformed and smushed looking, but definitely definitely an open, low density pathway in an otherwise fairly homogeneously dense material.
This to me is amazing stuff right here. This is, yeah, exactly.
I've got folders and folders of these videos and
so now we're in that little roundabout.
Yep, correct. Yeah, that's right, Seth. Yeah, we're cruising around the roundabout. So you see I'm trying to make the turn. So yeah, that roundabout thing is it's a puzzling. It's a very major feature, as you can see, and it's
it's pretty incredible too when you think that even by today's standards, they're 70 feet below sea level.
Yeah, it's how they kept the water away long enough is puzzling. So
yeah, exactly. That's it is for me as well.
Anyways, yeah. So, and I got a bunch of these. I can probably share with you guys.
That'd be great.
With there's no coordinates per se on these, so it's fairly safe, I think. But I'll confirm it with the team.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people ask about Aladdin's Cave. Was that in your data as well, over where Aladdin's Cave is?
I have to apologize. I'm not super familiar with where Aladdin's Cave would be.
Southeast of the garden shaft.
Okay, down in there.
Yeah, southeast of the garden shaft.
So that would be
almost directly south of the garden shaft, actually. About 100. So H8's right there would be east of H8 over that.
So it'd be in the fork anomaly there.
Maybe so, yeah. Maybe so. That might be part of it, or down in that little handle down there in the bottom part of it, the yellow part in the bottom.
And by the way, color coding, red means it's elevationally higher.
Okay.
So that you can kind of get the three-dimensional kind of feel too, just from the color. So reds are the highest. The greens are kind of the lowest. Oranges are somewhere in the middle. So you can see those two forks, like the fork tines, they're different elevations too, right?
Yeah, they are.
Like they tunneled up with one and down with the other. So it's pretty, it's pretty artificial looking for sure. So anyways, we've established that we have searcher tunnels that are kind of, shark circling, I think, the kind of key area here of the dissolution system. Is just another look at the fork there. Actually, we can go into that too if you want to see that video quick. Let me know if I'm getting too long here, Jeff, and I'll.
Oh, this is fascinating.
No, I agree. This is really interesting to me.
Yeah, there's a good view of the two different levels on the.
Wow.
Where are they?
So yeah, all I did was say, take these low density regions and and just shrink wrap it for me. So it gives you about as much detail as you can on the inside and the outside of that anomaly.
Wow, that's cool.
All right, so we're going to jump into the solution channel. We'll call it the solution channel for now. This is the upper one, and I guess it is a channel. Now, there is some deviation on you've already seen some of the team's interpretations of where the solution channel might go further kind of north up here. But this is kind of the real key main cavern I'm calling. And so you see H8 labeled down there, so you can orient yourself. This triangle is C1. The garden shaft is just kind of over here. So it's a much larger system, and there's probably has different degrees of kind of fill from the material that's caved in. And I think that's what leads to probably some of the chaotic interpretation of some of the borehole results, because it's filled full of junk, right? And and there's rubble in there too. And it's so, I'm sure there's a number of false negatives that have, confounded kind of the interpretation process for the team using the borehole in all cases. But, the seismic, like it's responding to low density regions, and it's stitching this whole low density region together. And it matches the model of a lot of these cave systems. The upper level tends to be a little more cavernous than the lower level, which is a little more sinuous and linear. That being said, you can see that there's hints that it extends all the way to Smith's Cove, and that makes sense. You have this carbonate platform that extends all the way out here. This was all exposed to meteoric water, rain. It was dissolving at this level, but this seems to be a real epicenter. This was kind of like the main cavern. The cave-in pit's somewhere over here, with that surface water body. So it's probably, you know, responding to this here.
I wonder if there's any dye in the cave-in pit.
Yeah, I mean, there could very well be.
If it's all connected.
Yeah.
So this is a cross section. Fortunately, my little image to the right here is not super helpful, but basically I took a seismic line that connects C1 to H8. And this is really kind of my smoking gun for the model I'm using for kind of this dissolution feature and how it would have affected the surface. So you have this low density, you know, feature. This is what I shrink wrap. So that's what you guys have seen in a few different ways. But then I was always puzzled, why is there this higher density thing at the bottom here? But then as I started doing a little more research, I realized that this is that rubble buildup is what that is.
Yeah.
So as this material is falling down, that's the buildup. So what this tells us is this is the epicenter of the cave-in pit. So any expression at the surface would have been essentially directly above this.
And you see the higher area above it, like it was falling down into that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then of course below that you see the other low density region. That's a secondary dissolution system. Now the connectedness between them varies, and that's what they're seeing with the boreholes. They're seeing some cases where they don't hit the bedrock until 220 or something like that. I believe that was in which borehole was that one? Can't remember it off the top of my head. Sorry, guys.
No, I can't either. Half the time I can't find it in my notes.
Yeah, J.5, 8.5. So that one, they basically found they went right through a kind of a conduit that was directly connecting both the upper and lower dissolution ones, and so they never really found that bedrock. But in a lot of other cases, they're not directly connected, and that also fits the models that have been out for a long time.
Yeah. Well, they weren't directly connected probably, but now because of all the boreholes and everything else that they put in there and caissons that they put down in there, are they maybe connected now? And we had Ian Spooner last season talking about how he was up in that area where he was sampling last night, and he heard that collapse happen. He heard a very large collapse. He thought it was thunder at first. He's like looking around. It's a clear day. Where's that thunder coming from? And he realized it was coming from underground. So more collapses happening all the time, even current, you know, and so that would open that up, wouldn't it? Connect the two together in some way.
Absolutely, Jeff. And dissolution is still happening through the natural process too, I have no doubt.
Yep.
So, but yes, so what I did here with this image was, this is the cross section in the two-dimensional world, looking at the seismic, pretty clear. I call this thing the podium. This is also what I called the teardrop anomaly, if you remember that.
Yes, I do remember that very much.
That is the teardrop anomaly. I didn't know back in the early interpretations, I wasn't 100% sure what to make of it. Now I'm almost certain it is this buildup.
Yep.
But why this is important is because this is where everything that was near surface has fallen down to. So if there was something up shallower that was collapsing down, it would have landed in this pile or would have kind of bounced off the edges of it, however it got down there.
Yeah.
And we see that H8 was a really key well. I mean, they found human bone in that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
They found bone, they found pottery shards, they found stuff in that one. So he's just off the southern kind of tip of that. So I think this whole region around it needs to really be explored carefully. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Over here, this is the 3-dimensional geobody model of this. So you can see what this, so this, if you can see here my cursor, it's quite small. This is H8 right here. So he's right on the tip of that kind of spoil pile. Here's the main buildup. So the epicenter up to surface is somewhere straight up here. But then you have this whole low area that kind of surrounds it. And I think that material would have, fallen down, rolled off this, and settled in these lower points, which fits the theory that they're using. Everything's just falling to the lowest point. Now, of course, if this is open and connected to the lower dissolution channel, then of course it could continue to move downwards. But I think they're disconnected enough. I think it's worthwhile looking at these depths, which are the 150 to less than 200 depths first, really getting a good sense of that.
Which explains why in past seasons when they're putting the caissons down, they stopped at the 150, say 180 foot level.
Yeah, because they're hitting bedrock. They're hitting this hard bottom. There are spots for sure, and maybe that's where some of these low points are connection points, but it's, they're pretty limited actually. I think the connection points, they're not as, other than new boreholes going through, but they're not big huge holes, right? They're smaller conduit connections, and that kind of fits the models. And I think we'll get to that in a minute. This is kind of my key slide here. This is it. Like this spall pile, this is the epicenter of what I believe will have been some sort of depression at the surface. That's what the boys saw at the surface, with the remnants of that depression, and it was essentially directly over top of this. So if we believe in that theory that something was buried above the water table or not too deep into it, and they want easier digging in an already sinking area, well, it would have been directly above this. And we have a big cavern where it can all settle into, so it all kind of goes around. This is a map view again of this section here. So it's just basically mapping the low density component. Oops. So here's the teardrop anomaly, and that's that buildup. That's where all the stuff is kind of piled up there. There's H8. This has always been interesting to me too, the slightly little high density spot here. So the reds in this case, these are low density. I used red to indicate that anything that's low density, that's your cavern, that's red and yellows. Interestingly, C1 was on kind of in this weird little crevasse. I've always been moved by this too. I've always tried to make sense, but the shapes of these things are complex. They're very complex, but C1 was right on the edge of something.
Yeah, it was an open cavity down there. They put a camera down and it saw it was a room, or an open cavity. So there's something. There is a little, like, the edges are not knife edge, and this is something me and Marty brought up quite often. Like, Seismic's got fuzzy edges, and it does. So this, there still could be a slightly low density area over here. It just didn't quite image out nicely for us. Now, there has been a borehole that went into the center of the teardrop. It was before I'd done this analysis, I believe, or not long afterwards. I can't remember. Not sure. I'm still trying to get some feedback. I'm trying to complete the feedback with the team with, what are we finding in some of these ones? But I think, to me, they drilled into the dense stuff. They drilled into all the stuff that fell down, all the clay. I think it's this perimeter you want to look at. You want to see the stuff that kind of hit that and rolled off. Right. Yeah.
And I think that's how did you get human bone at H8? How did you get pottery shards down at H8, which was at 150 feet? Like, it was right where it was supposed to be. So it roll off the edge. And so I'm really interested in looking around there. So I tried to tie in the most recent kind of drilling activity to this. The scales are all off. I tried my best, and I'm trying to get some coordinates from Steve right now and kind of get it exact, but I kind of eyeballed it as best I could. So obviously here's H8 down here. what I do like that I'm seeing is their kind of solution channel epicenter is where my epicenter is. Like they're zeroing in on the exact same thing as me.
They are. Yeah, that's the area of interest right now. Yep.
Now the hell of a thing is that all the boreholes that were mentioned in the last few episodes, they're all outside my ellipse of kind of real interest.
How deep is that right there?
This is at like 150 feet.
Okay. All right.
This is like the teardrop anomaly.
Yeah.
We're just going to say 150 feet. There's going to be a little bit of movement on that, but this is the kind of the depth I have. Like if I look at the write up for H8, quickly, let me just quickly take a look here. Just looking at the notes from the drill work there.
So this teardrop 150 feet, are we in the solution channel?
Yeah, you're right in the top, right? Like you're from like 150 to 160 feet.
And your description of it being more of a cave system, it really does match the drill behavior when they're saying, oh, we got 20 feet of no resistance. And I was thinking, well, how big is that solution channel?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking this little channel, but what you described, now I'm thinking, oh, okay, I can visualize it a lot better now.
But it's filled full of junk too, right? So there's some areas that probably have more accumulation of material than others, but it really is probably a fairly open system, or was, right, until it started filling up. And I think unfortunately that provides false negatives potentially for the team occasionally with the drill bit when they run into whatever all this junk is down there, because it'll also be chunks of probably the limestone and stuff that have caved in on, including the clay. So you're going to get a mixed bag of stuff. So I'm just reading here quickly, guys.
Yep. And we need to have a little time for questions too. Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to move it along then? I can.
Yeah.
We'll say it's at about 100, and we'll say the top of this image is at 150 feet. We'll say that teardrop anomaly is probably sitting around 160 to 170. It's at the bottom of the cave system, obviously, because everything's falling down.
This is really cool how it lines up with where they're working. It really is.
Yeah, that was amazing. Like that. I just put that together this afternoon, like tried to tie it all. I'm like, well, they're zeroing in on essentially the same thing that I was thinking. So, so yeah, just some video inside again, that's just an image in 3 dimensions of this cave system I'm calling. You got some landmarks here, so you know where we are. That's the eastern road around the money pit. So you can see that this main cave system actually continues further, but this was the one data set, specifically the money pit 3D shoot that it cut off there. That's why there's a straight edge to it. I didn't tie in the other one for this particular thing, but regardless, you can kind of see the topography and geometry to the cave, and you can see there's high parts, low parts, but it looks like a cave, right? Like a cave shape, and kind of got a domed roof, we'll say. And there is some interesting, real subtle features. This little dimple here I talk about, I wonder if that little dimple is kind of the portal to the surface where all the stuff was falling through.
Oh,
feel like that might be the subtle expression. The one thing about seismic, one of its blind spots is that anything that's vertical, it can't. If no reflections come off of it, there's a blind spot. So it needs to have some horizontality to it.
Yep.
Regardless, there's a little subtle dimple here. It's in the right spot to maybe be kind of where all that conduit for that material from the surface.
Oh, there's that box everybody kept talking about.
God, yeah, that thing is a hell of a thing too. It really does look like the bottom of a shaft, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there's the low. So you're looking at the bottom of the cave here. So blues are low, reds are high again. That's what the color coding gives you. But you can see there's this crevasse. Oh, now we're going inside. But as you get inside here, and you're going to see when we look at the deeper solution channel, things look different inside of it. This is much more open looking, right? And there's that teardrop anomaly, or the podium, I call it now. But largely a fairly open cavern, which you expect a cave to be, right? From what we see. Okay, try and move along here. So just some more interior kind of pictures. That little dimple I mentioned.
Oh, that's it right there.
That's it right there. So just like a little drop down on the surface, and it's right in the center of kind of the podium. So
I want to go down there. I want to dive down there and go check all this out.
Well, that'd be cool, yeah. This is way to the east, so you're standing to the east looking west. So you can see it kind of steps down too. Once again, they got complex geometries. But this thing is key to the whole thing. That is the epicenter of the cave. And I think if there was anything that fell from surface, that's where it's hanging out around the perimeter of it. All right. So here's some modern analogs or some pictures to kind of help you envision this two-layer system. So this is an outcrop of a limestone cave system in France. So you can see there's an upper level. And for scale too, right? The money pit really only occupies like something like that, right? Like this is quite a large area, but you can see that there's caves up here, and then you got some bedrock, but then if you look around, there is a second layer of caving. If you look at the little cartoon here, that's what you kind of see. And this is what I was mentioning, how it's not completely connected, the two levels. There's usually just a few conduits, a little more narrow than the whole system in cross section. And they call this an underground river. If you look at the geometry of the lower dissolution system, it's more sinuous, more like a river.
Yep.
And here, this cartoon I grabbed from the web quickly. Well, here's our upper dissolution cave system.
Yep.
Small conduit down to a more sinuous river-like system, and that's what we see here.
I think that's what we got there. Yep.
Yeah. And so this is at the greater than 200-foot level.
Yeah, greater than 200 feet. Yeah.
And feeds all the way down Smith's Cove. Interestingly, it goes around the caving pit, but I guess the point is, yes, something could have maybe gotten down into this deeper system, but I think it's a much lower probability. Everything's sitting up in the cavern, hopefully. And then there's these things again, but we're going to just look at this 3D again.
And this is the lower one?
This is the lower one. So we're going to go and say, you remember how it's just a big cavern in the upper one?
Yep.
You go into this lower one. After I'm done messing around with it for you guys, it will, you can go inside and see there's a lot more.
Oh, wow.
Kind of little chambers and, pillars and stuff like that. Because it's more of just this sinuous kind of river. And if you look back at that France analog, there was hints that it was more compartmentalized and part of that sinuous nature of how it's all dissolved. Weird little things like that, call them hanging caves and stuff like that. But a very different feel to them than the bigger, the shallower dissolution cave. Skip over that. Okay, so this is the final piece, and this is not as important to the story, but it actually does tie into this whole dissolution kind of system and would potentially explain the flood tunnel phenomena.
Okay.
So these circles here, I believe, are remnants of submarine springs, they're called. And so what happens is in these dissolution systems, and here's an example from Gainesville in Florida, and it's almost a perfect analog to Oak Island. You got some highlands here, you got rain here, you got a fresh water table. It flows down through that dissolved limestone through here, and then it actually upwells in the marine environment in a crescent beach, which is exactly what this is. This is a crescent beach. So these circular features, I was always like, what the hell are these? And they always had like different kind of plant growth in them too. They're very green and vegetated. So they're mostly fresh. Well, there's fresh water coming out of here. And so it kind of matches the geometry of the flood tunnels.
Yeah, it does.
It all ties in, and they're seasonal. Depending, you can actually have inflow and outflow happening through them depending on the time of the year.
Ice holes, anyone?
The other cool thing is these are very well understood.
Yep, Cat.
Way in the past, because they actually use these as freshwater sources. So here's a nice old ship, and they knew where to find fresh water out in the marine environment. But I think it ties into this model, right? This whole karsted model, but it also kind of maybe explains that flood tunnel phenomenon. It's a Swiss cheese. It's all connected. It's all connected to the hydrogeological system of the island.
So even if there was a flood tunnel, wouldn't this have rendered a flood tunnel pretty much like useless?
Yeah, just the Swiss cheese nature of it's just there's no stopping it, right? The water.
Yeah, that's what Marty had said. Yeah, he said there's no way that they could block it off now at this point, other than doing something like a big dig freeze or something like that. Wow,
fascinating.
So yeah, that's all I had on the money pit.
Wow. Okay, let's have a few questions. I know Matt was just asking, Jeff, does Jeremy find any distinction between man-made and natural tunnels? Could the original depositors have tapped into and used natural formations? Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit. I think so, hey?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. I think it's probably there was a combination of it. I mean, the big question always is, how do you deal with the water? How do you tunnel below the water table? Which is why I think this theory of, whatever was buried above the water table or not very far into it, and then it's maybe moved its way downwards.
Yeah.
But I think it's not a stretch that humans were trying to exploit existing natural features and then expanding on them.
Yep. Anyone else? I think Kat asked about the ice holes, because Dan Blankenship had talked about seeing ice holes, and if there is that water coming up in it was warmer than the surf or the water out there, it might actually create those and melt that ice or something. I don't know. I mean, that was something I always wondered.
Yeah, the fresh water is less dense than the seawater, so it will push its way up, and perhaps I mean, I'm not an expert on the phenomenon, but I think, from what I've read, I don't see how wouldn't break the ice perhaps when it's upwelling.
Yeah, they will. We have them here, like in the Kennebecasis River out here. It's a tidal river, but yet in the wintertime you'll have these holes open up, and it's from the fresh water coming out from the streams and the brooks, and it bubbles its way to the surface.
Yep. Barbara Duncan was saying Dunfield dug pit. It was 100 feet diameter and about 110 feet deep, I think, but it was a cone shaped. So all that backfill definitely would have changed the surface, the densities, very much so, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And you do see that if you look at it in a larger scale, the density in the shallower section of the money pit area is slightly different than kind of the more native kind of densities you see to the north, kind of further up topography in the drumlin where it's been less disturbed. So there is a subtle density difference. I mean, the reality is they just they put the clay all back together, and as time goes on, it also compacts itself.
You're right. Yep.
It probably will return to a more native density. So the density contrast is minimal, but it is detectable.
Yep. Jeanette says earlier, I wondered if there was any correlation to the subterranean cascade, underground waterfall type activity.
Well, I mean, I think during when it was exposed and a lot of the dissolution happened, because the sea level would have been lower, there could have been some sort of waterfall type scenario. You see that in a lot of the models.
Mm-hmm. Did you evaluate 10X and its connection to the solution channel?
That's a good question. I think it's just off, if I remember. I don't have Can't remember off the top of my head. Definitely I was asked to do that. I'm pretty sure that 10X was right on the edge of it. There was potentially some connection, but it didn't seem to be in the main fairway that I kind of showed there. I'd have to map that out and figure it out again.
Okay. Here's one from Matt. He's a big picture. What does Jeremy think happened on the island? Big picture. He works on science. I don't know. It's hard to get these people to commit to anything like that.
Well, I'm going to call myself a reluctant treasure hunter now. It's
all right.
This experience has been a once in a lifetime and changed me. I'll say I was never really into treasure hunting per se, but I was fascinated by the story of the island when I first kind of heard of it. So it was definitely something that interested me. I grew up with the concepts of buried treasure by pirates and things like that, and made sense. I find it's been frustrating that there hasn't been more answers come out like everyone else, but it's hard to deny, like, the swamp had to have been used for something. It makes so much sense, and then it's not a stretch that people were doing something on the island, from there. So I think something of significance did happen here. It's tough for me to say if it's still here. Did Samuel Ball get it? I don't know, but I am a believer now.
Yep. It would be ironic if machinations of the flood tunnels in Smith's Cove was the element that caused the actual treasure to fall into the solution channel. If it was an accident, is it still there? Yeah.
I think it's actively dissolving. It is an active system, so it's always moving. So I think that, absolutely.
I think it's quite possible. I mean, and that's something I've been kind of afraid of. You put all that weight and stuff on top of that, with all that underneath that you've shown us, open cavities down there and all the drilling and boreholes and caissons and everything they put in
the
there.
vibrations alone.
The vibrations alone, right? Would I'm just afraid at some point the whole money pit's going to go and drop 20 feet.
That's a very real possibility.
Yeah, it is. That kind of scares me. Temple of Brutus asks, Jeremy, does the freshwater in the ground cause signal attenuation and dispersion that complicates or messes with the seismic readings?
No, like I mentioned early on, compressional seismic, which is what we used here, it transmits through freshwater, saltwater, no problem. And then, into the subsurface. There are obviously subtle density changes, but the signal is not attenuated to a point where it's not useful. So it didn't really impact the result.
That's good. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that whole thing with that. I used to think that maybe the treasure was there, and the people that came in mid 1600s came and took it out. But you go back to Ian Spooner in his water testing samples saying that according to what he's sampling, something's still there to be able to give those samples. Yep. So that keeps me hanging on to it's still down there, hidden someplace and that's what Rick was getting all worried about, was the fact that it may be out of reach now. They may never be able to get to it because of what the collapsing that's going on and the whole two solution channels maybe becoming one or partly. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy to think. What is the density under the very old well with concentration of silver? Under the very old well. I don't know. I'm not sure where the very old well, where is that at?
That was the old well that had that, on the other side of the island that was in the wintertime. It wasn't frozen and they looked down and there was silver.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know. I don't think, lot 26-ish. Yeah, I don't think they've been, you guys didn't do any seismic over there, did you? Lot 26.
Yeah, no, I don't. Is that, I'm trying to remember.
Sam Ball had 27, 28 and all that right in that area, I think, and 26. Did he own 26, Tom? You had that all that.
I can't remember. I got to look at my map, but he owned 29. He owned 30, 31, and 32.
Yeah.
And he owned 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other three.
Yeah, I thought there were 26, 27.
Yeah, they probably were. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. The western part. Yeah.
They were almost opposite 6, 7, and 8. So.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, there was that old well over there. That's I don't know. You guys didn't do seismic over there. You did some magnetometer surveys, didn't you?
The other thing too to keep in mind is, and like, people say, oh, people were skeptics, not skeptics, whatever. We know people were on that island besides the indigenous people.
Oh yeah.
But we have no record of what the heck they were up to.
Right.
Yeah. But we know they were up to something because they left the evidence behind.
Yeah, they did.
Right. So was there, everybody says, well, where is that treasure? I don't think there was a treasure. I think there were multiple deposits made there over time. And that's why there was different activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were they all made it, were they all made 15 stories underground? No, probably not. But people were there and people did something.
Yeah, agreed.
Kat was asking, can you actually see the time change as the density changes? Faster through rock than through water and air, solid, liquid, or gas?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, and you can, for sure. They are somewhat decoupled, density and velocity. You can have stuff that are low density and high velocity and vice versa. Like I mentioned, though, kind of the whole area here, because it's such a mix of that clay and mostly water, other than when we get to the limestones there, the velocity is pretty consistent. Like there's like a number I came out with is about 1,750 meters per second, which it kind of kept working all the depths where I had ground truth locations. But that's a good question because there is definitely different velocities and through the various materials.
So if Craig Tester called you right now and said, okay, we're at a loss here, where do we put a caisson down? You say right there around that spot, that teardrop that you had
I think you should, right? Just plow into that and then see if you can search out beyond it somehow from there. I don't think they can do a mini shaft or something off. I'm not sure, right? But yeah, I think plowing one right on top of that and as big a one as you can would be a good way to go for sure.
Yep. That's where I'm at still. And that's kind of the area they're working. So we'll see. They're going to make their way. I know when they get the caissons going, we seen different, when I was there on the tour and we were I was standing up there on the top of the hill right above the garden shaft and looking down at the money pit. And I was looking to see we weren't allowed to take any pictures, but we could stand there and look at it. And I was trying to make a mental picture of where everything was. And they're making their way towards the garden shaft with the caissons when they do arrive, August, September timeframe. They start sinking them in, making their way towards the garden shaft or toward the baby blob area where that red dye is coming out of. So it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with. Yeah. Well, last questions. Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Jeremy's right. I'm hopeful. I think that's as soon as we get to that teardrop closer to that area, we're going to start seeing all sorts of artifacts and exciting things.
I mean, I still think H8 is the most significant finds. Like, I mean, you found bone. Like,
yes.
Like, you found bone in there. Like, you can't forget about that, Like, and I think, did they not trace the ancestry back to the Middle East or something like that too? And was it not 1500s or something like that? Like, it was the right time?
Yeah. It was the right time frame. Yep.
How did a bone get down there, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, now you sound like us, Jeremy. Welcome. You can come back next episode.
Yeah, exactly. Joanna, thank you very much.
How did that happen?
Thank you for up and support the show. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you're on board with us now. So
you're in.
Well, I hate to cut this off because I could surely keep on going, but we're at about 2.5 hours, and I know Tom is already. It's after 11 for you, so
don't worry about
it. For everyone else,
but watching a good movie. Hey, you're not going to bed now.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. This has been great. I really have appreciated you coming on, Jeremy and Sharon. I know we missed a lot of stuff. We got to have you come back. I mean, that's all there is to it. I know that they're going to continue with this, and they're going to continue talking about the solution channel with all of this, and then once they get the caissons going. So if you got some time in the future, I'd love to have you come back and join us again. We'll spend a little bit more. We'll get you going earlier. I know I was trying to hurry along through the rest of the show so we could get started with your part there because I knew it would take it off. But next time we're going to have to start with you, and then we'll go through the rest of the show.
Now that you see what they're physically doing on the island, They've gone down to the 150, 160, 170. They're going to the 200. Now you can physically relate what Jeremy's showing to us from his
Exactly.
seismic, right? To what they're actually doing. Like, it makes so much more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And I knew it would. And that's why I was really wanted to have you come on and talk to us about this, because I knew you were the right person to ask. And honestly, I can't believe that they haven't asked you back on the island to come out and do some more work out there, because
they're trying to work on something here. Yeah, well,
I know you can't talk about stuff.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned. But thank you again, Jeremy. I really do appreciate it. Let's continue to stay in touch. And like I said, I'd love to have you come back. Seth and Tom, thank you guys for helping out. And Linda, of course. And one last time, I'd like to say thank you to Christy for doing the synopsis. Awesome job. Thank you so much for working on that for us.
Great job.
For the website. So, all right, folks. And with that, we'll say goodnight. And stay tuned. We'll be back here next week. And don't forget, tomorrow night, we're going to be talking UFO, UAP stuff with Dustin and the MUFON folks from Utah. So
don't
stay
forget
tuned for that.
We believe.
We believe.
We believe.
That's right. Well, that's supposed to be Santa. Is he an alien? Maybe. I don't know.
He's from Nova Scotia, I think.
Oh. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks, for joining us. And we'll catch you next time right here on the J Free 906 podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks, guys.